Thank you. Hello and good evening and welcome to the April 6th, 2022 meeting of the Litchfield School Board. I'll call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are not.
Okay. I have a summary of non-public actions from March 16th, 2022. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of March 7th, 2022. Mrs. Hirschberger seconded. The motion carried by roll call vote. Mrs. Ames, yes. Mrs. Hirschberger, yes. Mrs. McDonald, yes. Mrs. Harrison, yes. Mr. Cutter, abstain. Summary of non-public actions from March 23rd, 2022. Mrs. Ames made a motion to accept the nomination of Jacob Hess as CHS principal at a salary of $115,000 for the 22-23 school year. Mrs. Hirschberger seconded. The motion carried 4-1-0 with Mr. Cutter opposing. Mr. Cutter made a motion to accept the nomination of Laura Dion as LMS art teacher at a salary of $72,048 for the 22-23 year. Mrs. Harrison seconded. The motion carried 5-0-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to accept the nomination of Alana Langley as LMS Spanish teacher at a salary of $64,274 for the 22-23 year. Mr. Cutter seconded. The motion carried 5-0-0. That brings us to presentations and recognitions. I think we have two tonight, both from CHS. So I think first on the agenda is Mr. Barassa with the FBLA. Okay, we'll do Challenge Day instead. Oh, okay. Right. So Mr. Perez with Challenge Day. Thank you.
Mike, do you need to connect?
No, because I think I just have one page. So I sent you, my name is Mike Perez, and then this is
Nick Harrigan.
So Nick and another student, Anthony Holder, they helped organize Challenge Day for their senior project this year. So it was a huge help. So just I sent that one pager, just the summary of Challenge Day to you, but I did want to talk about from my end a little bit about Challenge Day before I turn it over to the students to kind of give their feedback on the 3 days. So I had Nick and Anthony help organize Challenge Day for their senior projects. It was 2 days at the high school, 1 day at the middle school. I know I had a lot of questions why we had 1 day at the middle school. The reason why we had 1 day at the middle school is there was a little confusion between me and Mrs. Late, and she school dutied and reserved the gym at night, but totally spaced reserving it during the day, and they needed to do rehearsals on Tuesday for chorus. So luckily, Martha and Jen were gracious enough to let us come down to the middle school and do Challenge Day for that day down the middle school.
So it was still high schoolers, but it was just held at the middle
Correct.
school.
Yep. So what we did was we literally bussed all the kids down to the middle school that morning for the 8 o'clock start. And then it actually timed out perfectly where they all just jumped on the afternoon buses to come back to the high school because they go to that way anyway. So it actually worked out perfectly. So each day we had about 70 to 100 students. And this group of students resembled the population of the school. So it's, the goal of Challenge Day is to really have the students be a good mix of what your daily population looks like in the building. Adult participation, there's 15 to 20 adults, including faculty, staff, community members, administrators, teachers, other school board members, business owners, we had former students come in, which was really, really cool. Former parents, current parents. I think we had at least three current parents come in. Actually 4 if you consider Tina's kind of did dual roles. So it's about 6.5 hour day in the gym. They're in the gym. They're doing activities that promote empathy and inclusivity. And then there's two facilitators that I will say kudos to our kids at the end of the 3 days. The male DC, he actually came to me and said, if we ever do this again, he wants us to request him and Pam. He said that it's the best school that he's done, and he's been doing this for about 6 years now. So, especially since 2 weeks ago, the 2 weeks before, he was at school in Chicago, downtown Chicago, very gang involved. So he said it was a breath of fresh air coming into Litchfield. So it was nice. End of the day, because I know a lot of people ask what happens at the end of the day. End of the day, the 2 Challenge Day facilitators, they meet with all of the adults. And at the end of the day, all the adults, they get a list of their small families. And all their small families are about 5 to 6 kids. And they star them potential leaders, students that may need a check-in, and then any students that need immediate attention. And then what they do is they meet the 2 Challenge Day facilitators, meet with all the adults at the end of the day with our school counselors. So Ms. Nelson, Ms. Juris, and Mr. Parsons, and then Jamie Fallhaber, who's our mental health clinician, also met at the end of the day to make sure that our kids were safe. So potential leaders, we kind of follow up with that list to try to promote them to become better leaders in the school, step up, take on some leadership roles in the building. And then any check-ins, what we do is the check-in students and the ones that needed immediate attention, we are continually going to check in with them. We have our chat team that will at least once a month go over that list of students and make sure the school counselors have touched base with them. And then each student, we're starting to hand these out last week and this week. Challenge Day is doing something different, Challenge Day action cards. So, and you'll notice on the handout, but the challenge cards, they had to answer some of these statements and questions. So one thing I learned today is, one thing I want to challenge myself to do after today is, one person who stood out to me today that I can compliment is, because, one person I can apologize to or forgive is, and because, and then one person I can reach out to for support is. And those were the questions that they had to answer themselves. They folded those up, they gave them to their adult facilitators, and they were supposed to be getting them back a couple weeks after Challenge Day, which we started last week, and we're giving those back to the individual students this week, and the adults too, so they can kind of reflect a little bit on their Challenge Day. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick to start, and then I'm going to introduce some of the other students that have come in to talk a little bit about their experience with Challenge Day.
So I'd like to say the reason why me and Anthony chose to do this as our senior project to start is because of kind of the tough transition our school had to go through during COVID. We could definitely tell that there was a change in culture, and there was a change in attitude and a togetherness in the students, and we thought that was just a shame. And our experience doing Challenge Day our freshman year when we brought it here was incredible, and so we thought this would be perfect in bringing back that culture that we lost, and it was perfect. I mean, after the 3 days, I was blown away by people coming up to me and thanking me in the hallways, giving me hugs, personally saying this is what we needed to bring back what we lost. And like I said, I was blown away by people I wasn't expecting to come up to me and be completely changed by the whole process. So a little bit about what me and Anthony did with our project. We were mainly in charge of making lists of students who were in the days, and we did this completely random and unbiased because we didn't want any certain connections between students. We wanted this completely random so that students didn't have any advantages over others or whatever. And Mr. Perez obviously checked that list and things. We also helped during the 3 days set up stuff like transportation, name tags, lunches, just so the days would flow easier.
Setting up.
Yeah, setting up, taking down everything in the gym, helping the 2 facilitators. They had some stuff they had to bring up. But for us, I personally did the day twice. I did it the first day and the third day, and I saw a large difference in the amount of kids who were willing to reflect on themselves, and the amount of kids that were moved by Challenge Day actually increased by the third day. So it was definitely making an impact on our school as we were doing the days, which I thought was exactly what we needed. And overall, it was just something I really think we should do for future years to come.
You stay.
Right over there.
So I'm Ryan Garrett. I'm a junior that goes to Campbell, and I went to Challenge Day on the second day when we had to get bused down to the middle school. And one of my biggest takeaways from Challenge Day was it was something none of us took seriously at first. I talked to a lot of my friends. I talked to a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, this is dumb. We don't want to do this. There's no point in it. I'm just gonna mess around." Some were like, but once you get there, they start making you they get you to take it seriously just because you start connecting with these people, and then you get into your little families where it's like 4 to 5 people, and then no one's just sharing random stories or like making things up. It's serious stories. And I personally had a lot of fun doing it because there were people I never talked to. I'd only seen them in the halls, didn't even know their name. And there's this one activity where you cross the line and they'll read something off. So like if you've eaten an Oreo, you cross the line, but it was obviously much serious subjects. There were people I had never talked to, didn't know their name. And all of a sudden I felt like I knew them. And I feel like that's a big thing, especially for a small school like Campbell. When we already pretty much know everyone there, it felt like I knew who was there, even though I'd never talked to them. And it felt like I knew them. And I think it's something I almost want to consider doing for my senior project because I had so much fun. I made sure I went up to Nick. I made sure I went up to Anthony, Mr. Perez, DC, Pam. I went up to all of them because I just had such a great time. And it was all about loving each other. It was all about self-love, loving each other, making sure you're supportive of one another. But no one mentioned love for the people who set it up. And I personally felt like that is something we needed to do. And so I made sure I showed my love to everyone who set it up because I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my time. So I went up to everybody and I wanted to make sure I knew that they knew that I enjoyed it because it was such a great day for me. There was not one person I talked to. I talked to so many people. Not one person said they didn't enjoy it. Everybody said they enjoyed it to the point where after the first 2 days, some of my friends who had opted out were trying to opt in for day 3. Like that's how much fun.
Word got around.
Yeah, that's how much fun it was to the point where my friends who had opted out tried to opt in for day 3 just because of how great it was.
How was the lunch?
I liked it. No, I thought it was good.
Just curious. I heard things about. So did you learn to respect other people and get to know other people's by crossing the line, the crosses they bear in real life that you had no idea what was going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm gonna start to cry.
There's a lot of crying at Challenge.
Oh,
Day.
I know. I've been to a few.
It's like you said, like you don't know some of the people. Like it's a small school.
Mhm.
A lot of people know each other in this town. It's not a
Do
very
they
big town.
really know each other?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's still people that I never talked to, don't even know their names, and I see them cross the line, and I feel like I know them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird, but it's a great feeling, and I'm so grateful that we got to do this, especially because I'm a junior, so I almost missed the cutoff.
You're right.
I'm so grateful, especially with Nick. I'm so grateful that they brought it here, and I really think the school in general, as the 8th graders come up and the 7th graders come up, when they get to their freshman, sophomore, junior years, I really think they're going to enjoy it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, your mother's a mess.
You had to call her out. She's in the back row.
This is the most I've ever heard Ryan speak in the whole time I've known him. I'm so proud.
Oh.
She loves it.
My name's Oren Bodden. I'm also a junior at Campbell High School. And looking back at Challenge Day, I just loved it. There was not one negative thought about it. One thing that really hit me hard with it is the fact that I saw so many people who I've never seen interact walking in the halls in class, just straight up not knowing each other existed. I saw them hugging each other, comforting each other, showing genuine care because they were going through the same experiences. Similar to what Ryan said about the crossing the line event. When I would cross that line, I see other people cross the line. I felt like I had a connection with them because it's like we went through that same similar, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, like that's something we both went through. and it made a personal connection. So even if I still don't talk to those people now, even if I see them in the hall, I'm like, I hope you're all right. I hope you're still okay, because even though we don't know each other, I still really care about you. And again, there was a lot of tears. I'm not afraid to admit I did cry a lot. And I saw a lot of other people cry.
In a good
But
way.
it was like a good cry, because it was good to let it out, and it was good to see that it was a safe space that not only me but everybody else could let out all this emotion. I felt refreshed after the whole thing was over. It was like I was a whole new person, honestly.
I was exhausted for days.
I think one of the cool things that they do to break down the wall of trust is when the students first walk in as a group, they walk in and the whole 70 to 100 kids walk in as a group, and they have the teachers or the adult facilitators line up in two lines, almost like a big gauntlet. And these teachers, and they're blasting music, and
You guys
kids
were
are
so
like walking through the
terrified.
gauntlet, and all the adults are like high-fiving, cheering. So it's like the beginning stages of them just breaking down this wall for these kids to understand. It puts the adult in a really awkward position too, because they have to kind of break down their wall as well, and understand that. I know that there was a couple adults that came to me, and they're like, holy moly, that was unreal, that like the wall that I had to bring down myself. So I think it's just good for the whole community. And that's why I try not to do too many teachers too. One, because of the sub issue, but two, I try not to do too many teachers, because these guys and girls, they see the teachers on a daily basis, where it's kind of cool to have community members come in, local business owners come in that they don't see every day, that they can truly understand, okay, I'm not that they're being judged by their teachers, but they see the teachers every day, so it was nice having board members, community members, business owners, some parents, former parents, and things like that.
I think it's a good way to bring the community in.
Yeah,
too. And
yes,
the
very
more
much
we
so.
can do that, the more connections our students can make in the bigger community
Right.
too. So I think that I attended on the third day. I think you were on my day.
Yeah, I was on the third day.
And it was powerful, and it was draining. I was emotionally exhausted afterwards, but I certainly felt renewed and optimistic moving forward. I don't know if you guys experienced the same thing. Did you notice? I mean, everyone said they've noticed a change in the following days.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that positivity kept going? Is everybody kind of falling off that high, and now
I think a little bit of both mixed together. I feel like there's definitely that positivity is still there, up and high. There's definitely still moments where people are still very genuinely nice to each other, obviously, but it definitely wasn't at like its peak height, like after the couple of days afterwards.
I think that's probably why the action cards
Yeah.
are kind of a good reminder. Like, hey, remember where you were 2 weeks ago, or was it 2 weeks?
2.5.
2.5 weeks.
2.5, 3.
Remember, let's get back to that point and keep it going. So,
And then Ms. Nelson and I, we're really trying to work on like every month, do something, even if it's just small, to kind of just rejuvenate that thought process, remember that. So.
that's great.
And we want to talk about yours? Okay. And we have one more.
I'm Emily. I'm a junior. So yeah, I was kind of the same thing what Oren and Ryan said. I had the same type of experience. I was day 2 at the middle school. And it was like Mr. Perez said, it was kind of weird when we walked in and all the adults were like, what is going on? But they like ran through and they're all like high-fiving us. But they have this like it's really cool how they kind of build that trust within all of the students, and like the wall does break down, and we all went in there like, we're not going to say anything. We're not going to be emotional about it. But I think everybody was like, it was kind of crazy how it worked, but just reiterating everything that they said, because they already kind of said it, but yeah, same experience.
One of my sons went, and that was the one thing he said. It was trust building for him. And he said, everybody has kept that trust too. And so he was like, his comment was, even, a week later, he felt like that trust was still there.
That's great.
Yeah, it was interesting to see some kids that they wanted nothing to do with it, and then by that third day, so it happens at so this would be my 7th or 8th time doing this, whichever school I've been at, and it's interesting because by the third day, the kids that signed up wanted to kind of do it, and then they realized, ooh, this is not for me. So those kids really figure out that they don't want to do it. But then the kids that might not have signed up or didn't get a chance to do it, they're the ones that are like, no, I want to do it. So I think I had 11 on that morning come to me and be like, Mr. President, I'm not comfortable with this. All right, perfect. But then I put the announcement out and I had 15, 20 kids like, I know I want in. Like, I'm ready to do it. Yeah.
My kid sprinted.
Yeah,
There was one like, I'm gonna go do it, and he comes in 2 seconds later and he's like, I don't even have a chance. Like, there's
So that third day is always an interesting day because that third day you really get up to 100 kids that are really like, they kind of know what's going on. They've heard from their buds, and so they really want to. And just understanding where people are all different walks of life, and I think those are the two big things we take from this day. And I think it brings back, because I always say in my first year at Campbell, almost 10 years ago, I walked into that building and I was like, this place is like no other place I've ever seen. I mean, it was just organized chaos, but in a good way. And it just, the culture was just, and Noah was a junior when I first started, and Noah can attest as a former student that the halls were hustling and bustling, and it was just a great atmosphere. Kids wanted to be in that building. I remember being 4 o'clock, there'd still be 30, 40 kids in the building. I'd be like, go home. And some weren't even athletes. They were just hanging out. They'd be in the learning commons. They'd be in the main lobby. And I'd be like, hey, what's going on? But they just love the place. And I think these are the baby steps that I want to take to get back to that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Barassa?
Hi.
Hi.
My troops are out waiting in the wings.
Okay.
They're a little nervous.
Oh, that's up. They don't have to be.
I told them you're not as scary as
No, we don't.
do you have a presentation that we sent you?
I have it here. I can project it.
That's what we were hoping.
You got it. Here it comes.
And we'll just kind of give you the high sign when we need you to change.
Dana, we did.
They don't look nervous. I know
You
those
should high five
faces.
them.
They
Come on,
don't look
high
nervous.
Me, you're gonna go for it, right? We have another Bailey. Come on over.
Jack even showered.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dana Barassa. I'm the business teacher at Litchfield, Campbell's High School. And I've been here 9 years. And just to tell you briefly, I retired from Milford High School after 30 years. Well, it was more than 30 years there. But anyways, and I came here for a couple of years. And now 9 years later, I'm still enjoying every second of it. So, and our business department at Campbell High School, when Mr. Lonergan approached me to do this, I thought about it for a couple of days. And I said, well, this is what I'll do. And I said, no, not me. I'm going to have these guys come in and talk about their experience. So we're going to start with the introductions, and I have 2 slides of introductions. And Mia Kittredge has taken everything we have to offer, if it has to do with business, as has Haley Anderson. And Bailey Burke has also taken just about everything we have to offer as well. And they are co-presidents of our FBLA club, which we'll talk about in a minute. And CJ Reel has taken Accounting 1, Accounting 2, Marketing 1, and Marketing 2. Jackson Norrie has taken almost everything we have to offer, including school-based enterprise, where we run the school store. And 3 of the students here tonight were our managers this year. And Liv Pilcher is also going to talk about accounting and Marketing 1, Marketing 2, and maybe a little bit about FBLA. I don't know. So we're going to start. Why don't we do this? I'll just sit here. Why don't you come on up? I know you're first. And then you can just tell him when you want to change.
So
the
we
slide.
did a little outline for each of the courses. And the first one would be school-based enterprise, which we all know is school store. Students enrolled in school-based enterprise will have full responsibility for operating the school store. The class meets alternating days, and the school store is open during all lunches when the class is running. and then Jack's gonna go into a little more detail about that.
So I'm just going to talk about what the school store has to offer and what I've gotten from the school store. So from the school store, you're able to engage in like positive interactions with your peers. And we opened during like open house, and we were there during parent teacher conferences, and we were able to like sell merchandise and like foods and snacks and whatever they needed. So I just think it like brings the community closer together, as well as the business side of things. We learn how a business runs. He lets us take care of all the expenses. We deal with the office, the money. I think it just teaches us life skills, budgeting, people skills, and just he puts a different responsibility on us that we're able to learn.
Thank you. Olivia.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to talk about marketing 1 and 2. So with marketing 1, we examine like the basic foundations and functions involved in the exchange process, ultimately designed to meet customer needs. And we kind of cover marketing research, target market selection, product design, and a bunch of different things, just pretty much the basic foundation of marketing. And then with moving into marketing 2, we buy, we don't buy, we learn how to buy and why we buy and what we buy. And it's also just diving deeper into the marketing 1 topics. And another thing to note is that completion of marketing 1 is a prerequisite for marketing 2. So going on to the next slide. So I'm just going to dive a little bit deeper into what we do. So with marketing 1, we started off with a brand you project. So we basically had to think about ourselves and what our personality traits are and like what makes us us. And we had to make this into a logo that represented ourselves and why we would be, why we should be bought, I guess, or be hired. So once we learned the basics of just branding ourselves, then we learned how to brand other things, other products and companies. And then we kind of stuck to the theme of being hireable with cover letters and resumes and mock interviews. And then after that process, we started diving deeper into the basics of marketing. And we did a bunch of different projects. So you can see right there, those are just a few projects that we've done, which includes our advertising methods, our marketing consultant projects, different hidden logos, a bunch of different things like that. And again, we've done a bunch more. This is just a little example of them. And then going into marketing 2, I'm still in that class right now, so I still have a bunch to learn, but we're diving deeper into those key learning points. And one of our recent projects that we did was our recent sales pitch project.
That's Liv right there.
There I am. I was acting as a sales representative for a jewelry company. So I was showing how well a jewelry cleaner works. And that went really well.
My ring is.
Yes, I did clean his ring. I cleaned a bunch of people's jewelry that day. It worked really well.
My wife loved it.
And also for that specific project, we had to make business cards to kind of understand how that works. Mm-hmm. So you can see Bailey's and Mia's right there for their other businesses that they were showing. And then one more thing that I wanted to talk about before I wrap up the whole marketing thing is that this is what I'm actually going to school for. So when I was touring a bunch of different colleges and going to a bunch of information sessions, they were talking about their marketing course and what types of things I'd be learning. And within that second year, they were talking about a bunch of this stuff, which is really good because I kind of already have like basic knowledge of this stuff. So I know that when I walk into a room and learning about this, I kind of have a leg up compared to the other students in the classroom. So it's been really good, and I'm super excited to learn more about it when I go to college. So I'm going to pass it on to CJ to talk about accounting.
CJ's our accounting guy.
All right, so these are the 2 courses we offer at Campbell High School. Accounting 1 is an introductory course that is designed to, go into further knowledge into accounting. Some of the accounting principles we go over is GAAP, accounts receivable, accounts payable, debit, credit. We go into further understanding of our topics through projects. In order to research each project, we, make presentations and present them in front of the class. Accounting 2 is a continuation of accounting 1, and we go into more like GLs and different things that we use in universal accounting today, such as successful completion of the course of accounting 1 is a prerequisite course. Next slide.
Next slide, please. Thank you.
These are some of the topics we go over in accounting 1 and 2. And we go over case studies, GLs, workbooks, basic accounting principles, Key accounts, accounting ethics, advertising within accounting, stocks, insurance, paychecks.
How your stocks doing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead. I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
weren't.
interrupt.
No, it's fine. Yeah, they're not doing too good. I invested in EMC. Yeah, that didn't work out. Yeah, but Mr. Bross actually introduced me to this like course in accounting, and actually ended up getting a job in accounting last July, which is amazing, especially in high school. You know, not many kids my age get jobs in accounting.
He's an accounts receivable and payable.
Accounts payable, accounts receivable. I work for Gateways in Nashua. It's great.
Wow.
It's a great organization I work for. We work with special needs kids, and it's a great place to work. You know, just awesome.
And next year?
Next year, gonna go to college. Probably gonna go to SNU or University of Utah.
What are you taking?
Accounting. Probably gonna go to accounting.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yay.
That's your CPA right there.
Who's up next?
Okay, and then
Mia's
to
back. Okay.
introduce our next course, that would be personal finance. In this course, students learn financial literacy, which is the ability and use in knowledge and skills to manage one's financial records. So more just like your personal finances, obviously. Miss Barnett is actually teaching this course this year, and Bailey's going to mention that the two of us are in it, but we're in it this semester. So neither of us have finished the course yet. So this is kind of just like what we got so far.
Thank you, Mia. Bailey.
All right. So as Mia said, Mia and I are the only two that are here tonight that have taken personal finance, and we're currently still in the course. So we use the base curriculum for what we're learning right now is based off the Dave Ramsey classroom. So basically off the Dave Ramsey classroom, what we mainly use is the 5 foundations of personal finance. So we learn and base a lot of stuff off of those 5 foundations. And some of the core concepts we've covered so far in this class is credit cards, credit card debt, interest rates, taxes, and basically we learn a lot about financial planning in personal finance. So that's the main concepts we've covered so far.
Thanks, Bailey.
Pass it on to Haley.
All right, Haley Anderson.
All right, so now we have Future Business Leaders of America, also known as FBLA. This is the business club that we have at the school. So Bailey, Mia, and myself are co-presidents of FBLA. And our 2021 and 2022 membership, we had 22 students in it. And all of those students attended the Fall Leadership Conference in October. And there we participated in various business-related activities, team building activities. And the 3 of us as co-presidents, we attended the New Hampshire State President's Meeting in December, where we learned a lot about how to be leaders in our chapter. And we had 8 members attend and compete in the State Leadership Conference last week in March. And out of those 8 members, we had 6 that placed either first or second in their competition, and we had 1 place 4th. And then I'm going to
Took 7, placed 8.
We had all our schools that were like either
What?
thinking about or
I know.
got
What?
into at the bottom, so you
Logos.
guys could see. But overall, we just wanted to say that we all enjoyed and learned much from the courses we've taken through the business program at Campbell, and all of us have chosen to go to a university next year, and all of us are business majors. So obviously, this program had a big impact on us. We also said we feel confident and comfortable going into next year with the knowledge and lessons that we've learned throughout the last few years at Campbell.
And I don't know where they went, but they had the logos of all the schools they've been accepted to. Why don't you say it first? Go ahead.
I'm deciding between you and Coastal Carolina.
Jackson, Salve. Yeah. Yeah, you have less than a month. Okay.
I'm deciding between UNH, Bryant, and Bentley.
And then I've committed to Roger Williams University.
You're going to love it.
And SNU and University of Utah.
And we would like to thank you all for inviting us here tonight, and we really appreciate it. And you can see that these students, I'm very proud of all of these students, not just the 6 that showed up, but for the entire program. So thank you all very much.
Mr. Brass, I have to say, as a mother of one of your students he is doing amazing in college.
My man.
The most amazing letter, because it knocked my socks off. It was amazing how well you knew my son. And I think he took most of these classes.
Yeah, he took every class that I
Did he?
taught.
Because I have a degree in business management and I went back for my teacher's degree, but I think you could see the love for you, Mr. Barassa.
Very much. I appreciate that.
And I hope you guys had fun at the FBLA meeting because I got to go to one of those too.
Yes, you did.
And I showed them how to order Alley Cat pizza. They had the upper. No one knew what was hitting them at the meeting.
Once again, thank you very much.
Good luck, everybody.
Great job.
All right.
Thank you. That brings us to community input. So you can join community input online if you are at home with the Google Meet link. The link is meet.google.com/HAR-JANAHNK. The phone number to join that meet is 1-662-565-5146. The PIN is 911-992-355#, and the link and the phone number can be found on our agenda. Is anyone in attendance that would like to share any input? Okay. Is there anyone in the
Nobody
link?
on the screen.
Nobody's in the link. All right. So with that, I will close the first section of public input, and discuss during the meeting later on in the meeting. That brings us to correspondence.
Hello, I have correspondence from Betty Vaughn on March 17th. She said that her son was a senior in 2019, and he said that kids made up places to go, and she thought it was a lot of pressure for kids to put where they were going to college, and it wasn't a positive experience. And she also put, she mentioned that Andrew is a new member, and he needs to realize he's not chair, and it was disrespectful to run the meeting when you're not the chair. And we've had plenty of disruptive school board members over the years. We don't need another. And this one is from March 17th from Susan Haley, talking about how great Challenge Day was, and it had a positive impact on both of her sons. They were able to talk about a disabled cousin, and her older son brought home the letters, which mean a lot to the parents, with that from Challenge Day, and what a positive experience it was. And she wanted to thank Campbell for bringing such a great program to Campbell. And it's a reminder to show how to treat others and show empathy and kindness. This one is from Alan Wagoner. He had concerns over cell phone usage during school board meetings, and I wanted to know if they had anything to do with the business at hand. He wanted to know if they were part of the Freedom of Information Act. And it was mentioned that Mr. Cutter had emails concerning a local Republican group, and he wanted to know concerning the outreach to the Republican group. And now that Mr. Cutter has been sworn in, he wants to know if he can get it because of the Freedom of Information Act. Sonia Costinos, March 17th. Sometimes it's not the number of voices, but the impact of the decisions that matter most. And she was not in favor of us adding colleges to the announcements, and she thinks it's hurtful to the kids that struggle. Andrew Marin on, let's see, what is that one? March 17th. He's new to Litchfield, and he thought we've done great work for the future planning of future school buildings, and he appreciates all the work that we do, the faculty, staff, and boards, and students. He felt compelled to write to express disappointment in Mr. Cutter's approach to working with the board. He's all for encouraging self-reflection and growth within boards, but to start with a negative attitude and remarks, especially towards Mrs. Flynn, were unprofessional. He wants us to work collaboratively and respectively on behalf of our town and students, and he appreciates the work we all do and looks forward to our progress. Did I do Betty Vaughn? Yeah, I did Betty Vaughn. And this one is from April Weber, and it is, there's no date on it. And she requested that this email be read in its entirety during public input, which we do no longer do since COVID. We are summarizing information, and it's all put it on the minutes.
It's in the minutes.
She has, in the most recent election, it should be clear that the board that a change was needed, and that's why Mr. Cutter was overwhelmingly became a resident's first choice. She was displeased that our board voted for Ms. Harrison for chair again, and based on her lack of leadership, the superintendent has been running our school board meetings, and she applauds Mr. Cutter for listening to adults. The board needs to remember that the superintendent, the business administrator, and executive assistant are supporting higher personnel, and they are not part of the elected board. And she was shocked that Mrs. Harrison refused to vote on the motion brought forward by Mr. Cutter regarding graduation. And she thought the students did their due diligence and professionally presented to the board. She greatly appreciates everyone putting themselves out there and doing what they feel best for our community. Mr. Cutter made many suggestions during member input, and I hope the board will listen closely and implement those to move in a positive direction. A big change is needed.
Thank you. Any other correspondence? All right. That will bring us to superintendent comments.
Thank you. So first up, we have the school board meeting calendar. So this is still a draft. Remember, we had preliminary conversation about it, but I just want to bring it forward. Bear with me while I get to it. The questions that are still open for us to determine are the July meeting date. Remember, we have a calendar that gets us through June, so we're picking up in July. And we'd asked board members to take a look at their calendars and let us know what would work in July. So that question needs to be answered, maybe not tonight, but before July it does. And then you can see after that in August, we've established the regular meeting schedule with the first and third Wednesdays. And that works all the way through, with the only hiccup being in March, because once again, we're looking at a February/March vacation week. So we're bumping it out. The good news is this year that bumps it to the Wednesday immediately after the election. So it would be the next night I take that back. The election will be on the 14th. So we are able to have a meeting on a regular night prior to the election, in case there's any last business that we need to conduct. And then you'll also notice at the bottom, and I'm seeking input from the board. The format that we've been following is to have the schools come and present every other month. So basically think of it as a 4-meeting cycle where the 3 schools have a presentation. Tonight was CHS's night. You can see they had 2 presentations to make, which is, it's good because it gives the board an opportunity to hear from the schools. And then the 4th one is Mary presenting on curriculum initiatives. And so she tries to line up the various committees, PERC and so forth, to make sure that the work that's done there then is able to be presented to the board. And so I'm assuming that's the one that's labeled CIA at the bottom of the chart, but I'm assuming the board is interested in maintaining that approach so that we hear from the principals every other month and the schools, and that you want to continue the practice of having students and programmatic spotlights made to the board.
Any comments on that?
No, I think it's a calendar pretty similarly mirrors what we did last year anyway. My only suggestion or comment would be I would like to discuss what the format would be for some of those community forums, and if those would be planned in advance and therefore put on the calendar so people could know that that was coming up. So if we're going to do them quarterly, maybe we pick, November, because there's a 5th Wednesday, I don't know, something. But my thought would be to put those in there so people can plan to come, and maybe the topics are to be announced based on what's going on at the time. But I would like to have that extra opportunity to engage with the public, similar to what we did with the forum with critical race theory, just to be able to have dialogue and conversation. And something to consider.
I'd support that too.
I would actually like to hear from our director of special services sometime throughout the year. So maybe could she put he or she, depending on what's next, maybe take 1 or 2 of the curriculum slots, just as a thought.
Well, the other thing too is maybe tag team on that night. So have it be, I think there's a couple of different ways we could do it. We could actually spotlight a special program in one of the schools during their cycle. Or we could have it coincide with the CIA presentation. But I think it's a great idea. Let me take it back to the team, talk with them about the best way to integrate
I
that
just feel
in.
like people who don't have kids in special services don't necessarily understand the program. Yeah. And I think that would be valuable. That's a good point.
I know one of the things we also talked about was LEA and LSSA. I know it's to be determined, but that would impact the schedule as well as meeting frequency and meeting time, which would also impact the schedule. I know at our last meeting, which was March 16th, I know it was an intention that we would table it at March 16th and bring it up at this meeting. I don't know if that's still the plan or not, but that's what was said and agreed upon at that last meeting.
Do you mean the meetings of the board and?
No, I mean the actual time frequency of our meetings.
Yeah.
So as we go through schedule, I think that's important to highlight.
Okay. Yeah, I think too, we had tabled the discussion on, increasing community outreach, like the forums and the skip level meetings and all of that for the retreat in May. Is that right?
So I think maybe with this feedback, we could bring it back to the team and put in special services, somehow coordinate that, maybe come up with a couple of community forums, and then a proposal. Again, we had talked about possibly having additional meetings as new GMS and LMS continue to happen, what that would look like.
I know that the Facilities Improvement Committee is planning, specifically meetings about community forums and meetings about GMS, but those can all be included.
Yeah.
It'll be a busy year.
Be a busy year. So I don't think we're ready to vote on it yet, but I think this is a good draft.
Is there anybody ready to say avoid this week in July?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, so let's just cross off the list July dates that aren't
I'm
going to
not
work.
available the 23rd to the 30th, so that last week.
Okay.
I'm not available the 11th through the 22nd.
One second, let me just put initials in.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the 11th through, so actually, okay.
All those weeks, yep.
Anyone else know of something in July?
I do not have any conflicts on a Wednesday in July, so yay, yet.
Yet.
Nor do
We
I.
need to schedule it fast.
Yeah, not Wednesday though. That's August. I'll be in the woods for that third.
Not on Wednesdays thus far.
So we're looking, I mean, if it looks like the 6th would be the only available date at this point. So I'm going to ask that we put the 6th on as the meeting. It's the week of July 4th, but
That is a prime vacation week, I would imagine, for
staff.
Not so much. I'm not going anywhere, but
Why can't you meet without a quorum? I mean, with a quorum, but without full representation.
we can.
We could.
You're not going to have every board member at every meeting, likely.
Right, and staff typically vacations in July anyway, so we can, depending on what's on the agenda.
Didn't we dial? I dialed in from meeting last year.
Yeah.
And I will be dialing in August.
We're all pretty good about comment. We really,
Yeah.
it's not often
I'm
that
saying
we
it's
have
not
4
always
people
gonna
here.
happen.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
It'll happen at your next meeting.
Do you want to pick a different date, or are we solid with the 6th?
6 is fine.
so we'll make that blue
Okay.
on the calendar. I'll take the special ed question back to the team.
Okay.
And I do think at the retreat, when planning the community forums, we should just be really mindful. Once we know what it is we want to communicate, pick those dates, get them on here. So, Thank you.
All right, great. That brings us to
Enrollment. Bear with me a second. Go back to screen.
Let's go through signatures.
All right, so get this projected for folks at home. So basically, you can see that at Griffin, we've had a little bit of an increase in the month of March. We went from 457 to 461. Looks like we gained a fourth grader, a third grader, and 2 first graders. So I honestly don't know that story. I'm not sure if they're move-ins or what, but that's our enrollment number. The middle school also gained a student, and it seems to be a 5th grader. So it seems like the younger kiddos are moving into town at the moment. And the high school also gained 1, and that's a 9th grader. And so those are our numbers currently, but you know, it's interesting. If you look, we're at 1239. We started off with our October number at 1238, and then we dropped a little bit, but we've come back up again. So it's relatively steady. It's not a run for the hills with shortage of staff or anything. And looking at the kindergarten enrollment, on March 1st, I'm sorry, we should look at April 5th. That would be the better number. We're up to 73 students in kindergarten last year. And this year we're at 59. So we're running a little bit behind that number.
Is that normal?
It varies year to year. We promote it. We encourage people to sign up. We want them to let us know they're coming. But I don't think with kindergarten registration is any such thing as normal, because it really just fluctuates by the individual year. But we are currently at the 59. Any
And we're
questions on
already-
him? Oh,
I'm sorry, we're already at 84, or still at 84 for first grade.
for first grade. And last year we were at 77. So, so again, we're over in first grade, but we're way under in kindergarten.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any changes in town that we know of, or, you know, one town over in terms of offerings for kindergarten that might be affecting it, or?
What do you mean?
No idea. Are there
Daycare
daycares that
center.
are offering kindergarten this year that weren't in the past, or?
I don't know that we've heard of anything affecting it, but you know, it's still early enough not
Yeah, I
to
know it
worry too
ebbs
much
and
about it.
flows.
But I will certainly, when I'm down at
I
GMS
haven't
next, I'll talk
heard
with
anything.
Dan and see if he's heard of something maybe
Yeah.
impacting it.
Okay.
And anybody out there with a potential kindergartner, if you're planning to come, please get them signed up, because we would like to know.
Great. And you had school board retreat?
Yep, I just wanted to give an update on retreats. So since the last meeting, Michelle and I have been very busy planning, contacting people, and getting everything organized. So we have the retreat scheduled for tomorrow night. And just a reminder to the board that that is scheduled at St. Anselm's at the Institute of Politics. Michelle did send the directions on how to put that in your GPS so it gets you to the right spot, because you don't want to use a generic address. You want to use the specific one. So starting at 5 o'clock, we've got training for the board from Barrett and Will. So they are coming from the School Board Association. And there's a packet that they have presented to us. And Michelle, are we making that electronically available?
It's in a separate, it's in a folder, in that retreat folder that says updated in HSBA.
It's pretty much, from what I understand, it's very similar to last year's packet. So I think the packet that I shared with you, Andrew, is the packet for the most part. There may be minor tweaks to it, and the rest of the board got it last year. I would just ask you to, you know, if in advance, if you can, just familiarize yourself. And
I'm sorry, where's that folder that it's stored in?
In the school board team drive,
The shared
drive, there's a school board retreat folder. It's in the folder for the date 4/7, and it's also on the retreat agenda.
Okay.
It's linked on the, is that the training
it's on the
packet
retreat
22?
agenda.
Okay.
and you know, if you review it in advance, I've already asked them. I said there's no need to go through it in the same level of detail, but I envision this more a conversation. What are the questions that the board members may have for the association relative to how to operate, or policies, or budgetary. You think about the things that are statutorily reserved for the board. And this will be an opportunity to ask those questions and dig in a little bit. So it'll be probably less presenting and more dialogue this year, because we do have so many people returning, and we did it last year. We also linked the school board goals document. If you remember, those goals were developed last year at the retreat, the same session. And so just a reminder that we do have those goals. It's good to revisit them. Our intent would be because some of the goals were achieved this year. So now we want to sort of, all right, what's next when it comes to the action plans, right? So the board should probably consider sometimes thinking about those goals and helping to guide the admin team toward what the action steps are for the next year. Next up, we have the culture and climate and communication, and that is coming from Bill Preble. So Bill is a professor at New England College in Henniker. He runs the Center for School Climate and Learning. And so I reached out to Bill and I said, tell me what schools you've worked with in New Hampshire on ideas relative to climate and culture. And he's actually done nationwide work. So the center, they just got $1 million grant from the Gates Foundation, and they are studying culture and climate in Los Angeles. So they've done big. They've done work in Chattanooga. They've done, regional kind of stuff, right? I mean, thinking south, now west. But he's also been to Guilford, Wilton, Limeboro, and there was one other school in New Hampshire, it slips my mind. And they've done that kind of work also there. So I asked Bill to come in, and actually we've taken a two-step approach to this. So, the union presidents are here, and vice presidents, Darlene. So Kathy and Darlene representing LSSA, Patrick and then Stacy, who's not here tonight, representing LEA. We sat down and we said, what can you bring to us? And he said, what are your concerns? And we've had a very honest, open dialogue about concerns. Also involved in that meeting were the principals of each building. Mike was representing the high school because with Bill's retirement, I wanted to make sure somebody was able to carry this forward. And I'll speak for myself. I left energized because I felt that having an independent third party who's an expert in the field coming in to help guide our work that needs to be done was the right way to proceed. I'll let everybody else speak for themselves if they wish. But the next step for Bill is to come and explain to the board who he is, what he does, and what he thinks are the next steps for us. So we haven't committed to anything yet. We're exploring this. This is one option, but we're already engaging a guiding team at the school level to help with the work that needs to be done. And what I love the most about it is that it'll involve school-based teams. So there'll be like this oversight umbrella committee, school-based teams. The data that comes back is owned by the school, and the action steps to be developed are developed by the school. So here's what it says about adult-on-adult interactions, or adult-student interactions, or student-student interactions. How are you going to resolve it? How are you going to address it? What are the things that you can go after to improve the culture and climate in the district? And again, having somebody from outside coming in and guiding that, I think is the approach that we ought to take versus us trying to figure this out and us trying to figure out what the data means. I'd rather have the Center for School Climate and Learning guiding us. So that's what we're going to be talking more about tomorrow. And I want the board to come in. I'm giving you this primer because I want you to come in tomorrow night ready to ask those questions, ready to figure out if Bill's the guy or Bill's team is the team. It's not just Bill. You can't do LA and Litchfield. So the point is making sure that this is the right step, and that the board feels that this will address the concerns you have. And I think the honest, open approach of here's what we've heard as board members. This is what we want to try to discern.
Mhm.
So that's what that is about tomorrow night.
Okay.
I like that approach. I just have to say that it's one thing for the board to potentially agree on this, but more, I would say, equal, perhaps more important is for the LSSA and the LEA to be like they need to think it's a solution as well, a potential solution. So my personal feedback is I think it would be important to hear from you guys as well.
So I've invited both associations to remember. Let me just talk for a second about the retreat because I had an email from Andrew questioning two things: is the retreat a public meeting, and are we legally able to conduct a retreat off-site and spend money on food? Those are the two questions that I was asked to look into. So, so to be clear, this is a public meeting. The board is meeting and it is a public meeting. The public is invited. Now, here's what makes it a retreat versus a board meeting. You'll notice that on this agenda, there is no public comment. There is no action items, right? So you're not even asked to vote on that tomorrow. This is all feedback based. It's discussion based.
Is it
It's
televised?
dialogue.
Is it going to be
It
recorded?
is not. We're not planning to televise or record. But that's what makes the retreat different from the meeting, because you're not asked to vote on something. You're not asked to approve something per se. It's dialogue, feedback, discussion. Okay. And it is a publicly posted meeting
3 towns away.
so that
Towns away. That's my concern. A public meeting should be in Litchfield, not in Goffstown. And I know you wanted it in a place that was a school educational setting. I don't know anyone that's going to go to Goffstown that's going to come to our meeting. And maybe they do want to hear what the questions are we ask. That's just my personal opinion. And I'll be there if I can, but I just think it's a big ask, especially if I don't get good food.
You brought this to us from Bedford. What did Bedford do?
well, so first of all, the Bedford retreats, we held them at Southern New Hampshire University. And there's one year we couldn't be there. Oh, I know. It was the downtown campus. So it was still SNU, but it was the downtown campus, not the Hooksett campus. So
In the mills?
no, it's not in the mills. It's actually on Elm Street. It's kind of strange. It's like upstairs above a furniture store or something. But anyway, so that's where we had it. And so they were out of town. They were not on television because there's Bedford TV that covers all the retreats. They were not. And they were publicly posted meetings, and the public could come and watch the board dialogue. It's open. And so going back to the legal question, so Mike confirmed it has to be a public meeting. The public has to know that you are doing this. The location, not a matter of concern. And you need to, again, just post it so that people know. So we followed all the normal posting rules for the public relative to this meeting.
Except our policy, right? We have a policy that says if we have a public meeting, you have to have public input. That's our policy from this board. And that's no longer on this agenda, which means we really shouldn't have a retreat,
Well,
right?
we can add public input if you wish, if that's the policy.
I mean, am I misinterpreting the policy?
Which policy?
It is one of them. It's going to take me a minute to find it.
If that's the policy, we'll add a public input
Yeah,
piece to
it's
the
not a big
agenda. That's not a
But
problem.
nobody's going to
All
come
that.
because it's in Goffstown.
It's in Manchester.
What?
It's in Manchester. The address is in Manchester. And it's
It's
20.
Penardville. It's part of Manchester, yeah, but it's Penardville. St. Anselm is Penardville here, and then there's Bedford here.
Policy BEDH. Now, I think I'm looking at, there's two different versions of BEDH on the website, just so you're aware. One is under where the policy library is of 270 policies. The other BEDH is under the agendas link. So under school board agendas, there's another link to policy BEDH.
I forgot about that link. I'll have to
That's
fix
right.
that one.
But it does say we're going to have two public input components to our meeting. First observation, right? Second observation is, as a board, when we last met, this was a non-public. That's what the board decided upon and discussed. Somehow, some way over the last couple of weeks, this is now transferred into a public meeting. Fine, that's great, right? A couple other questions is on the agenda, I now see Cindy Couture speaking to the board still.
Andrew, can we do one question at a time? It'd be easier.
Sure.
So let's go back to this. It was never non-public. It was always a public meeting.
I don't know.
I actually thought part of it was going to be
I thought
non-public
so.
because the
Non-public was-
attorneys were going to be there.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
We were going to check whether that would come under the rule that it's a non-meeting. So
Oh,
when
I
you meet
see.
with attorneys,
Okay,
it's a
yeah, yeah, right.
non-meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were checking to see if that fell under it or not. But the rest of the agenda was public. So it was,
Yeah.
the question was, is that a non-meeting? The answer is no, it's a public meeting. It's training from, you're not meeting on a legal matter with an attorney, which is a non-meeting. You're getting training from your association. So it is a public meeting.
Okay.
That was one. What was the second?
Talked about policies, right? Talked about that. I was just bringing up Cindy as a part of the agenda.
Can I just verify? So on BEDH, does it
Yes.
say meeting?
BEDH. For each meeting, again, this is probably the old one, 2 15-minute segments shall be set aside on the agenda entitled Community Forum.
So what would the board like to do?
Official meeting is the new policy.
Yeah. The intent of that policy was an official meeting like this, but this is a meeting. Remember, it's a meeting of the board in public, which is not the same as a public meeting.
Was our other retreat a public meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
All the retreats that we've had have been open and posted. So what would you, how would you direct us? We can simply add
It's the will of the board.
public session on here, or we can go with, what we're thinking, which is that the reason it's a retreat and not a board meeting is because it allows the board to have that dialogue internally, but it's your call.
I think there should be public input. I also think if it's a public meeting, we should be having it on camera.
So, one question at a time.
That wasn't a question, that was a statement.
Genuinely, I thought, and when we met and we talked about this at the end of the last meeting, that this portion was not going to be public, that this was going to be a non-public because there was things that would get into and approach personnel matters as we talked about culture and climate. And so it was going to fall under a non-public was my understanding, which was why I'm supportive of having that off-site, because it's not going to be on camera anyway.
So
So
it's a public meeting now.
right. So that's I'm struggling with that part of it, I guess, is my concern, because having a non-public off-site, I don't think there's any harm to the public. I don't think there's anything sneaky. I don't think there's anything shady or any accusations of transparency. It's just us doing our jobs.
It's a fact. It's a public meeting.
That's what I'm struggling with. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm doing this in my head right now. So I'm just being honest.
I think if we're talking about transparency, the optics are we're going to whatever, we're going to that corner of Bedford, Goffstown, or wherever. And we're going to have every question I ask is going to be written down for people to read. If I ask the lawyer something, excuse me.
I didn't take minutes at the last retreats.
No, we just
But if it's a public meeting, you shouldn't be.
Yes.
I was not required to take
Oh, no,
minutes.
that's fine. But it wasn't a public meeting.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
So we did public meetings without minutes?
Because it was a training.
Right. No action.
It was
no board action.
it was a
was
meeting of the board in public, and just keep that distinction in mind.
Mhm.
It was not a closed door meeting. Anybody could have walked in.
Makes us look bad.
Yeah, I'm not supportive of this. I'm not. It should be a public meeting here in town. on camera.
I would be fine moving it into like CHS, the library, you know.
Are we in a position that we are locked in at St. A's at this point?
We signed a contract with St. A's because the board vote at the last meeting was 4-1 to have it offsite.
Offsite.
So we made that plan based on the direction the board provided.
But
It was a
going to be non-public.
200.
And I think the spirit of that changed.
$200.
Like,
Right.
I
is
agree.
the direction and the
I don't
spirit
know.
changed
I
somehow,
don't know.
some way over the last 2
200.
weeks.
I
Yes.
just think we're getting conflicting messages and we're getting confused. And
Well,
I'm getting conflicting
we-
messages.
we signed a
Yes.
contract with
Yeah.
St. A's for $200 to rent the room for 4 hours or whatever it is. That I don't know. To be honest, I don't remember what the refund policy or cancellation policy was. So that's what we have incurred so far. And back to the legal question, Mike said it's the board's agenda or the board's budget. And if you have a line for training, which includes, there's a budget line for training, and you have every ability to spend that to rent a room, purchase food, do what it is that the board would like, because it's a budgeted item for training.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, we did 3 trainings and the total cost was $850 for all 3 trainings, correct?
Correct.
But we have a budget that's higher than that,
Correct.
3,000, but we kept it over 3 trainings. We kept it a very minimal cost.
That is correct.
And we offered to pay for our food this year if we
Correct.
went offsite. Yeah.
And we've already paid a deposit on the room.
Correct.
Awkward silence.
I mean,
I know. I'm trying to think of a creative solution. Like, can we get Litchfield cable there by any chance? Do you know what I mean? Would that solve the?
Do you think
Could we
this
do an
was
audio
the issue?
recording?
Huh?
Could we do an audio recording? I mean, is there the ability to?
We just like
we
do a
tried
Google
that
Meet
at
and
one of the
record it.
school tours.
Right. Right.
Just the
Jen did
personal,
it, yeah.
and it was awful,
Awful.
unusable.
I'm just trying to be creative
Yeah.
and think of, okay, well, this is the way it can be a recorded meeting. The public can attend if they want to. So we're, we'll have public input as the policy requires. But it is recorded for others to listen to and hear, at least for the parts that are public. I mean, I imagine there may be times where we do have to go into non-public as we broach personnel issues.
Absolutely.
If we change the location, does that require, I think it does that require a repost of the agenda, current location? And we cannot have it tomorrow if that happens.
If that would be correct.
Okay.
So if we could find somebody to record it, that might.
Do we know the layout of this
Is
room? Is it a
sufficient
large
for these
room? Is
people?
it echoey? Is it?
It's like this.
I would be in.
Could we get somebody to record it even on a camera? You know what I mean? Like, and put it on the Facebook page. That'd be the best.
I think a public meeting should be held here in town, in public, right? That's the responsible thing to do in my view.
I can't believe I didn't know the meetings were public. I swear to God, I thought they were non-public because they weren't recorded and they didn't have minutes. Oh, wake up, Elizabeth, wake up.
I mean, to me, the $200 unfortunately is water under the bridge at this point, right? I mean, the board still has the opportunity to try and do the right thing in the eyes of the town.
Well, it's also everything is scheduled too.
Well, right.
I mean, the
Bill
speakers,
and Bill and
the.
Michelle have worked
It's-
hours.
I understand and
planning
appreciate
this
that.
at the board's direction at the
Absolutely.
last meeting.
Those are
The
valuable.
other thing to keep
Time
in
is
mind
valuable
is-
resource too.
A critical component is Will
Yes.
and Barrett
Absolutely.
were available one day,
Right.
April 7th.
Yep.
So if that's the intent, which is again what we were directed to do,
Yep.
you're looking at sometime in May to do this because they were basically booked the month of April.
They
if I
are
remember right.
booked.
Yeah.
We will not get them again.
We
And
found a window.
last
in-
meeting, we had a sense of urgency about trying to, discuss, get these things in.
You're 100% right. You asked us to do the 30th or the 7th. And so we couldn't do the 30th, but we could do the 7th. We made that work.
Does it make it better if we find a way to record the meeting? I'm fine with opening up a Google Meet and recording that if everybody in attendance is amenable to it. It's not going to be the best quality, but
That's true.
you know,
We could use the same Google Meet link, right?
we could do that.
So you should also know that Google has changed their terms of service.
Ah.
Recording meetings is no longer available to us. That is a premium service, and the cost is about $10,000. So,
Oh.
you know, they hook you in, they get you.
Oh my goodness.
I have a Zoom account. Does that record?
Well, Oscar, what are you doing tomorrow night?
I have Zoom. I have both.
Oh,
I mean, my work pays for a Zoom account, so I'm happy to, which can record. I mean, if it's just a matter of having an open line, but again, if it's not going to be audible to people, then I feel like we're trying to check a box more than,
I think the challenge is if we all log into Zoom in the same room, we're all going to be hearing
Cross.
echoes,
Yeah.
right, which you don't want.
One of the biggest things I heard in all these elections was transparency and communication. Transparency. We're in a public meeting in Manchester. See you there. It just rubs me the wrong way for transparency reasons. Like even,
but I do think we need to be clear. This was meant and is planned as an orientation and a training.
it's not.
And
a
so
meeting.
it's not meant to be, my understanding was it was not meant to be a public meeting.
and it is now.
In the traditional
sense of agenda, public meeting and whatnot.
It's not a community forum or a, where we'll be taking input from.
But I think
thought we just
before
said were taking
before we make a decision on that, because I do have concern with Ms. Couture being a part of the agenda still, right? Because she is a public member, although no longer in town, right? And if we have a non-board meeting, right,
She's
why is
changing
she
that.
added to this?
Yeah.
So something happened in the last 2 weeks where this went public, which we understand more from a legal perspective now, and I appreciate, but also seeing somebody who's outside of town on this agenda is concerning to me.
So,
well, if we went into a non-meeting or non-public, she would not be in the room.
But that was our original scope as a board, was this was non-public, but yet she was here added to the agenda.
Right.
I don't feel.
It looks like a training thing to me.
it is. She was.
I don't think we should have anyone from out of town speaking. I don't. I mean,
So
but-
is Ms. Couture still part of the agenda?
No,
And
I
you don't want the culture, and you don't want Bill Preble speaking
No,
either?
he's- No,
Or
I don't
Will
want
or
a random
Barrett.
citizen that used to live here to give her 2 cents on this town anymore. I just don't want it.
So
That's my personal experience.
right, and she was added to the agenda. Mike and I discussed it. She reached out to me after watching the last meeting and said, here are some. She's getting. I forget. She's
An
going
MBA.
for an MBA in public
Policy.
policy. So she's been in class discussing exactly this kind of strategic planning, and she reached out to me and said, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to, if I have any historical knowledge that I can lend to the board. And I saw that as an opportunity to learn from prior boards and her experience in Litchfield. And that's why I sent it to Mike, and that's how she ended up on the agenda. It was not
Well, what if
meant
Derek Barker
as,
called you? Because he's been on both boards.
right?
He didn't.
He didn't. So,
He lives in town.
but Liz, it wasn't meant to be I'm going to ask this this former school board member how to tell us how to do our jobs. That wasn't.
That's what it seems like to me.
I understand that. So,
Liz, just if I may, so Tina forwarded that on and asked me to reach out. Michelle was with me as we were doing this. So it sort of broke into two things. You can see this is labeled school board procedures, policy, and conduct. Because Cindy had thoughts relative to watching boards and multiple boards, budget committee and school board over about 20 plus years, She just had
She was
thoughts
also
of,
president of the New Hampshire School Boards Association.
and
She
she had
also
thoughts on
had-
patterns
I
and
had
things
thoughts
that
of
she's
things she
seen
said.
that she wanted to share. So that historical perspective. The second thing is Cindy was, as I understand it, the board chair when Campbell got approved.
Was she?
And she said, I also know from experience what it takes to sell a school successfully. And she said, I also know what it means to fail at selling a school because we
GMS
could not, correct.
Times.
So she said, I have valuable lessons that I learned in that process that I want to share with the board. So I have her on this agenda based on that dialogue, but also on the next agenda where we're talking about strategic and community engagement because Cindy's done that. She's done it well. And she didn't, I shouldn't say she didn't do it well, but she did her best in a different climate, right? Trying to sell a new school when there was a bond for a new school. I think historically, as you look back on it, it's like there were a lot of hurdles that you had to overcome for that. But she understands what it means to engage. So I do think there are lessons there, but again, the will of the board.
Right.
If you tell us that you don't want to do that, that's not a problem. Just let us know. We're trying to create the agenda that we heard you say you wanted us to build. So, but if we're off base, just tell us. We can make an amendment. It's not a problem.
In my view, it's off base.
What?
In my view, it's off base.
What's off base?
To have Cindy come in and speak to this board. She's no longer a resident of town. While she certainly does have historic knowledge.
She's a nice person.
Yeah, she's a nice person. There's nothing wrong with that. I think this board has enough going on that we should be able to figure out collectively as a group. That's why we're in these positions that we're in.
Right. I don't mind speaking to Cindy and just asking her that, declining her proposal.
Well,
to
you can
speak.
ask the rest of the board.
How
I've
do you
said
do-
my piece.
I am fine if she's on. I'm happy to listen to anybody. Of course, I will make my own decisions, but I am more than happy to, hear from somebody who's walked, in greater shoes than me. Yes, she was a school board member, but she's done other things too, and I'm happy to listen to that.
What's Heidi?
Respect that.
Again, I hear what Tara's saying. I'm very happy to listen, but I also can see the perspective of, particularly with it not being a televised meeting, that there could be optics that it is not ideal to have someone who has done great things for our town. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to sound harsh, but polarizing is the word that comes to mind, and that people feel strongly either way about this particular person. And again, I don't know her personally, and I have only good things to say about her, but that's something I would want on a televised.
Okay.
I guess
fair.
is I would want to have. I would like to hear from her. I think it would be great to have her come to a board meeting. I don't necessarily oppose hearing that perspective because I think there's a lot of different ways we can learn about how to push this through. I just am not sure that I want it on a meeting where it's there's any perception that it's non-public or there's perception that it's off campus or off site to hide something, which there's not. There is no intent to do that, but I can understand the perception and the optics. And so I would say, while I appreciate the offer, I would respectfully decline for the retreat. That would be my recommendation.
It sounds like it's.
But again, I appreciate the offer.
Tara, are you in agreement? Are you okay with that consensus?
A different meeting. That's fine.
Okay. All right. I will contact Cindy. She will be removed from the agenda.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly because the community engagement retreat is in town. I think we're going to have it here at this point on camera. It'll just be a different procedure. Is Cindy welcome at that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As a speaker.
Yes, and that, because that's about engagement
Mhm.
relative to, you know,
true.
I think it's in general, but let's face it, the largest thing we have to engage on is the school project. And so that perspective is valuable.
I would look for her perspective along with anyone else who was, so I don't, maybe not
That's why
necessarily a
it's a
solo presenter, but somebody, you know, a few different school board members from that
Were there
time
during
period.
that. That's perfect.
Rich LaSalle was chair of the school board at that when it passed.
So just having the different point of views, I think,
Absolutely.
and perceptions for them that, you know, they may have perceived how it went differently. And so understanding that, I think it would be good to have that cross section.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on the?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with Heidi. You know, I'm still on the fence and still debating whether it's appropriate to have a non-resident present to the board. But I just have to give that some more thought.
Okay. Well, in any meeting, anyone who provides public input, if they don't live in town, the board can take a vote on whether or not to allow that input. So I guess that's.
We should have consensus before inviting
before
them,
we-
though.
Like, well, she's already committed to that, right? Is she already committed to that date?
I'm sorry, I'm losing
Sorry.
track. You're talking about,
I'm talking about the next meeting. If we invite somebody from out of town to speak,
well, first of all,
we won't
I-
have consensus from the board that the
So-
person will be allowed to speak.
so,
Well, we
so a
didn't
couple
know.
of
It
things.
just showed up on the agenda. I was shocked when I saw it.
Oh, I know. I'm
personally.
talking about the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
meeting. Yeah.
But just to be clear, you know, Barrett, Will, and Bill are not residents of town. They're presenting.
They're lawyers that we employ.
Bill is not.
You haven't even met Bill.
Oh, Bill. Oh, sorry. I thought we were talking
So,
about
I mean, I want to be clear on what rule we're following, because I also did not know that Cindy was not a resident. That's news to me. So I don't know. And I don't know what the rule is. I don't know what you're asking us to do.
I thought we were interviewing Bill to use his services.
You're
Listen.
hearing from him of what he does and what his work is. I gave you the 10 cent.
I think we need to narrow the scope of the conversation at this point and focus on what's the plan for tomorrow and the retreat that's scheduled as planned.
Okay.
Right?
Isn't
Is
that what
is
we're
that fair?
doing?
Well,
We're
what we're talking about moving people to different meetings, and what's the plan for tomorrow? Or is it
Well,
gonna be a
Cindy's not
St.
going
A's? Are
tomorrow.
we
Now
not
we're on
having it?
to.
So what is the will of the board, I guess is the question. Do I have a motion to postpone and reschedule? Do we move forward with the plans that we have in place because we have these plans in place? Those are kind of the only two options I see it, with the promise that the public is invited and the meeting is open.
Madam Chairman,
and will be televised.
I'll make a motion. Right, I'll make a motion to delay the retreat until a time where the meeting room can be booked here in town and be on camera and publicized for the community to watch.
I second.
Any further discussions?
Are there things that are going to suffer because we're moving this back? Meaning this was a pressing item, again, that we discussed 2 weeks ago that we wanted to get going.
Sure, there are, and I was looking forward to this retreat, right? But I was under the spirit of our last presentation or last board meeting, right? This was a non-public, very tight scope, very narrow focus, and it seems to have expanded, right? And now it's expanded in my mind to a point where this does need to be public. It does need to be televised. I'm all for it. I just think it needs to be here where we can congregate as a community and solicit input.
I'm just concerned about how far back we're going to have to
I-
push it.
I
I think
sh- I
training is
share in your
important.
concerns there.
It's
I
odd,
do,
we-
but-
We
Yeah.
can do some training online, and we got 3 different emails.
So can I just react for a second? It was 3 weeks ago, because there was the 5th
Right.
week in March, right? You asked us to plan a retreat around training and culture and climate. You've deleted Cindy off this agenda, And now it's about training and culture and climate, although I would argue we had Cindy on there to be part of that too, but that's fine. I don't see this as expanding beyond. And the vote was 4-1 to have it off-site. And we talked about Manchester as a location. So just to be clear, I don't see this as a left field agenda, but again, we're building it for the board. So tell
I'm
us what you
listening to
want.
what taxpayers are telling me because that's who elected me where I am. I know how I feel inside. I'll travel anywhere because I like to drive. But people are telling me, how can you have this outside? Why isn't this being televised? How many people asked what a retreat was on Facebook this week? I had to stop looking. I'm just speaking up for my, constituents or the people who voted me in.
But in a year when we're especially focused on transparency and building that rapport, right? I just think we need to be mindful of that. I've said my piece.
I just voice what people tell me, what I think
Given where we are, we absolutely could have this tomorrow. I mean, I can call 2 people and say, come to Campbell instead, right?
But do we have to repost it because of the change in location? And how much time do we need
What's
to?
the,
You have to repost it 24 hours.
So if we start at 6:45, can we move it to Campbell?
you could, except you've got the
know.
the association's coming at 5. I don't know that they're available at 6:45. We told them they'd be in at 5 and out by 6. So, or out by 7, I guess.
I don't even know if there's any rooms.
I understand. I do. I understand the transparency concerns, and I understand, that some of us feel like this has changed. I don't. I mean, when I voted on March 23rd to have it off site, this is what I was expecting.
I didn't think so many people would be barraging me with questions about what a retreat is and why it's so far away. I just want to speak up for the people that don't want to speak up.
And all of this happened last year. And
Right.
why was it not an issue last year? I mean, that's
Because
the
people are
thing.
looking for transparency now.
People have always wanted transparency.
Yes.
But
And I think we have everyone's position, right? Is it fair to say we should vote?
Yeah, are you
yeah,
ready
you
to
made a
vote?
motion, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a
And
motion in a
Liz
second?
second. Yeah.
Can you read back the motion so people know exactly what they're voting on?
Motion to delay the retreat until a time, when it can be in town and televised for the public.
So I guess I just want to respond and say I own the fact that I was one of the 4. I voted for this retreat. I voted for it to be offsite. We did it last year. I found retreats and the training to be incredibly beneficial. I found it to be more of an orientation for me as the new board member. So I am 100% in favor of having a retreat, and I'm 100% in favor of conducting it offsite. I thought we were doing the legal meeting with the attorneys and having personnel discussions that approached culture and climate, and it was non-public. I did not, and I will own that I did not understand that it was a public meeting. And so
Neither did I.
that changes it a tiny bit for me, only because, not a tiny bit, a lot for me, because I feel like we have set the tone for public meetings to be public and televised. And so I just want to respond because I want to apologize because I didn't understand it. And I understand you put a lot of time, you and Michelle both have put a lot of time into planning this. But I feel like with the amount of questions that are happening right now, we don't have enough time to scramble to make this happen. I think we have to put it off till May. That's how but I apologize because I do feel bad that you spent a lot of time on it.
She said it better than I did.
I know. I definitely thought part of it was going to be
Right. It may
They
not
won't be
July.
available until the summer.
Well, we don't know that, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
what
Well, it was
the question is to a date when it will work.
Yep.
So
I didn't enjoy I went to the one in Concord, which was good, but this is definitely more personable. But I don't feel like I believed exactly like I forgot your name for a second. Heidi did.
Here I am.
I seriously, I got that same impression. Maybe I was out to lunch.
Okay. So,
So go ahead and vote.
all in favor of.
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But no, go ahead. If you have something to say, I want to hear it before we vote.
Why wouldn't we have a why isn't the attorney's information in non-public? Like, why can't we have it in non-public? Because there are definitely legal questions that I think we all have, just, about how we, certain, however we act as a board, things like that. So I don't know. And then I did think we wanted to talk about, climate just really candidly in non-public, and that would approach potentially the line. So why can't something of this be salvaged for tomorrow? I feel like we've got it doesn't have to look exactly like this, but
this is the posted agenda, right? That's the issue.
You can amend the agenda. You can't change time and location because that's been posted, right? We just took Cindy off and
right.
skip items on the agenda. That's.
I definitely thought some of it was going to be non-public.
If the board makes a motion tomorrow, if we have the retreat tomorrow, and you make a motion to go into non-public under the RSA, you have the ability to do that. You can always make that motion.
I just don't want to miss the opportunity of speaking to the attorney, having the attorneys there to talk about. I mean, that's
Their
the
time
big,
is very valuable.
yeah. And especially at the start of, right after elections, the start of it to, get us off on the right foot. I don't know. I just feel like I would like to see part of it salvaged at least.
Could we shorten the agenda and make it simply the non-public part with the attorneys tomorrow night and just stick with that, and then we'll do the rest at another time?
So
I know we have the room for 4 hours, but
yeah, what I worry about is the culture. I think you need to hear from Bill tomorrow night, because again, you're not voting on it. I'm not sure we're even going to come forward with a board vote necessarily. However, we need to know if we're in the ballpark and if we should be plugging ahead, because the steering group has been softly formed, has weighed in, has already begun to participate, and it's going to be May before we know it and June right after. And, if we're going to do this for the start of the year, and we're going to make culture and climate a priority, and we're going to bring in experts to do that, we need time to plan, and we need time to, it's not inexpensive. We're going to have to build that into the grants. So we have grant money that we intend to use, but we just need time to. So I'd like to carry forward with that. So at least, because frankly, if on April 20th, if we were to do something to take a vote in public at a public meeting, you need to know about it. If we hold this thing off until May, June-ish.
Can we work in the next 24 hours to get that portion recorded, to have the non-public in the beginning and then get that portion recorded, right? Wouldn't that solve our...
But I've also heard concerns that discussing culture and climate should also be
Yes.
non-public. So
That's what I originally
what
thought.
I'm hearing is that the board is okay. This is just what I'm hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Andrew thinks it needs to be held here in public and televised. So check on Andrew. I got that.
I'm clear.
Right. Thank you. The rest of you are concerned about it being off-site if it's open to the public, because no one will come and it's not televised. But if it's off-site and non-public, that's okay.
As long as we're complying with the statute, we
Right.
can't just call a non-public to call a non-public. We
But if
we
we're
have
discussing-
to comply with the statute.
It's open to the public until it's not.
You could, at the end of this agenda, somebody could make a motion under RSA, whatever the legal quote is there.
Yeah.
But
91-A.
Well, but then it's A through C, and you pick A,
Right.
B, or C to discuss personnel,
Mhm.
and you could absolutely do that.
So does that get us where?
I'm so confused at this point.
I don't feel like Dr. Preble fits within that, you know,
The
like what
non-public?
I feel like I feel
Okay.
like part of it, we could discuss perhaps what we see as the culture issue in that non-public. But I feel like what he's going to present
Sure.
is
Should be
public.
Should be public. Yeah.
Can Dr. Preble come on the 20th and do a presentation to us on during a regular
I
meeting?
can't answer that.
Okay.
I booked them for tomorrow. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
book
know.
them for the 20th, but I can.
Yeah.
Even if it's by Zoom,
Sure.
you know, and he could come in or whatever, Google Meet.
Was there cost associated with booking Dr. Pebble's
Time.
There will be costs associated, obviously, but not yet. So
And what about
Sure.
the
attorneys.
The attorneys, thank you.
the attorneys, that is a service.
That's a
We're not
service
billed for
that we
service.
already,
Pay for as membership.
we
for-
get that with our membership, yeah.
So the cost, if we canceled tomorrow, would be the $200 loss for the room.
And the attorney's time.
Potentially.
And the time it would take to reschedule.
Right.
All right.
And that's the financial cost, but then I'm thinking more of the time value
Exactly.
costs of
Yeah.
losing
Right.
direction and momentum.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
End of the year comes real quick. So we have a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor of postponing tomorrow night's, that was the motion, right? Postpone-
Yeah.
Postponing tomorrow night's retreat until
A later date. Right.
we can have it on site and televised. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm only opposed because I think that we can work it so that it's a non-public. I would be in favor of changing tomorrow's agenda to be a non-public.
But we could do that at the retreat tomorrow. I thought that was.
That seems kind of fishy to me. We're going back and forth between public and non-public. I'm just looking at,
Well, I think the vote's been taken, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm sorry, but will of the board is to postpone tomorrow
We'll,
night's retreat.
we'll do our best.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. Any other school board comments?
It was actually my
Oh, that
comments.
was your comments. Did you have anything
So
else?
just to
Sorry.
update the board, so I've spent 2 days on as chairing a NEASC accreditation team. So
Fun.
remember that at in Litchfield, Campbell High School is an accredited school, and I was asked to chair an elementary visit. So they do accredit elementary, middle, and high schools. They also do district-wide accreditation. Our team, as you know, has been engaged in looking at district-wide accreditation as an option for us. And basically trying to line it up with the next decennial for the high school. So when Campbell begins the process in 2025, I'm trying to encourage our team to understand what it would look like to make a proposal to the board that we launch into district-wide accreditation and accredit GMS, LMS at the same time we do CHS. So they sent me to Unity Elementary School. What a neat little place. Unity is over south of Claremont. It's up on top of a hill. It's a brand new building, brand new, opened in 2014. And we spent 2 days on site, meeting with teachers, parents, the community, the whole NEAS visit.
K through 8.
K through 8. It's a K-8 school. It has 95 kids. The building was built for 200, but there were only 95 attending. So, but it was just a good experience, real good opportunity to get out, see what's happening in other schools. Learned a couple of things along the way. Shared with Corey and our design team. The entire place is heated by air source heat pumps. Didn't know that. So I walked in and I'm like, how's this place heated? Like, oh, well, we have these Mitsubishi multi-city units. There are 4 of them outside. And I looked at them, took a picture. I'm like, those are the ones that we're proposing. They feed a head in each room, mini split head. Talk to kids and staff. How is it? Comfortable? Absolutely. Do you have any issues? Nope. Are you ever too cold? No. Are you ever too warm? No. They're like, the school is great. So I'm like, add it to the list of a school in New Hampshire on top of a mountain that is comfortable using air source heat pumps. The only difference is they are fueled by propane. So they still have the propane bill that we're going to try to get ourselves out of. So, but I just wanted to share with the board, that's been my activity for the last 2 days. And now I'm coming back to catch up on emails. So thank you.
You're welcome. School board comments?
I have comments.
Can I go first? Because I'm
Yes.
quick.
I don't have any comments.
You
I have
don't?
a couple. Yeah.
Oh, I closed out of it, but I wanted to say I believe it is National Assistant Principal Week. So we have Mr. Perez here. Thank you very much. And today is also paraprofessionals.
Oh, nice.
And so thank you. I think we have some unsung heroes, and they do not get the credit. Nobody in education gets the credit they deserve, but I really feel like paraprofessionals especially. And so I wanted to make sure I took a moment to say thank you for all of your time and dedication. So go, Liz, you're up. I told you I was quick.
I like it.
I'd like to address one of the emails we received on cell phone usage. As board members, many of us come directly from our jobs, including Dr. Jetty. And I know that during meetings, we're not, emailing our friends to ask what's going on. A lot of us, many of us work full time and come directly here without communicating with our families. We are here between 4 and 5 hours every other week. And there are times when our families reach out to us during meeting time. For example, I didn't take a call once in Campbell High School Library, and my son was in a serious car accident. My father is currently in a rehab facility, and I will use my phone if anyone from any facility calls my phone. It isn't a game. I understand what the use of phone is, and it isn't texting somebody, are you watching this? We need to keep in touch with every single one of us have family members at home that are missing us in some way, shape, or form. And that's what we committed to in this position. And I'm more than happy to be here, but I can't cut off a lifeline to my family. I can't and I won't. Thanks. That's it.
I'm with you, Liz. I feel the same way. Yeah. Sometimes
Just
my
this-
kids are at sports and I've even had to
Yeah.
leave school board meetings to go pick them up because I'm the only driver in my family at this point in time. So, I only use it when I need to. But I do have a couple comments. I guess I'll start with the fun stuff. So I was at the high school for 5 minutes this today, and I saw 2 classes outside walking around the school. Mr. Keefe's was one of them, and Miss Seapan, and that made me so happy to see those kids outside getting fresh air, even though it was a little chillier than probably everybody thought. But I got out and got my walk today, and walking is just such a good therapy for everybody. So I was thrilled to see that. The second thing is I went to the first emergency management meeting, and this is not related to that meeting per se, but every time I talk school board, my kids ask me, what are you going to do about the town cell phone coverage? Like in the middle of Albuquerque, and why can't we get our message? Can we get Wi-Fi at the school? And it's not, like, from what I'm realizing, it's not in the purview of the emergency management department, right? Because it's not a crisis response for the kids to have the cell phone. We need to have coverage, but if anybody else in town is concerned about town cell phone coverage, what I'm hearing is that is it John Brunel that we should be talking to? And I don't know if that is the right avenue, but I think he's
the town IT director. He has nothing.
I
to do
know
with
somebody
cell
referred me
coverage.
to him, but it didn't quite seem right. So if there's a group of people who are interested in pursuing that cause with Verizon or whoever else, let's get together and try to figure this out, because it is a problem. And I think any parent who is trying to get a hold of your kids during that drill, that wasn't a
building's
drill.
made of stone, though. I think that's part of the problem.
Well, there's also the
So
center
whatever.
part of Albuquerque, Albuquerque.
drops.
So anyway, that was one thing. And then my last thing is that we just spent a good amount of time talking about our retreat. And I just want us to all, as board, to respect all of our administrators' time because I think we just have to do our best to try to clearly communicate as a board what we want our administrators to do without kind of backtracking. And because their time is very valuable. And so that is something I want all of us to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Any other comments? All right.
Just if I may, the cell phone thing, I think it's important that we recognize the spirit of what I think the intent of that comment is, which is that we're not communicating with each other during a meeting by cell. Like, hey, Heidi, are you going to vote this or you're going to do that? That's
Right.
that really is critical that is not what's happening. My phone just rang. It was our facility director. Now, when he's calling me at 7:00 at night,
There's a problem.
or there's a potential, and I'm going to respond to it. When my wife, who I haven't seen in 2 days, sends me a text, I'm going to respond to it, just to be clear. Okay. I will never be communicating with somebody else about meeting practices. And I think if we all honor that commitment, that's what really matters in this, right? So, but I will respond to what I see on that phone.
All right. Thanks. Let's move on to general business. We have the minutes from March 16th, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve the March 16th minutes.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
As amended, right?
What's that?
As amended. As amended.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. As amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500. We have the minutes from the March 23rd meeting, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve the March 23rd minutes.
A second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? 500. CHS principals report.
So Principal Lonergan is ill and not able to be with us tonight.
Sorry to hear that.
I don't know, Mike, you're not prepared to go over his report or highlight anything.
I found out that he wasn't.
What if we do it this way? Are there questions from Bill's report that we can try to answer?
Because there's just so many kid things going on. It's just like, as I look through this, I will tell you, we have awards going out, we've got acknowledgement of students going out, we have, kids going to St. Paul's, kids, we did the top 10, we had National Art Honor Society, we had the district concert, we had the play. I'm trying not to forget anything, so.
We've all received a copy of the report.
Yeah. I think some of the big things, graduations coming. We're looking with Val being involved. We're looking to do something a little bit different with senior night. We have a student, Liv Pilcher, who was here tonight. She's doing the senior class video. And it's kind of cool. She's making sure that every single senior that wants to be in the video is in the video. But we're going to show that on senior night this year, do something a little bit different with that. We have senior projects. We're coming back. This is going to be our first year back doing the evening public presentation on May 12th, which is awesome. We haven't done that since before the pandemic. So you're all invited if you guys can come. We've got some kids doing some really cool projects. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else for Mike? All right. So we'll move on to the BA's update.
So I'll just give a couple updates based on the document that I've submitted, the biweekly project updates. The middle school project, we're waiting on the GMP, guaranteed maximum price, to come in from North Branch. We're expecting that no later than April 15th, and that's to fall in line with the closing of the MLP is on April 20th. So we're trying to keep within that time frame. Other than that, it's the fine tuning of the design and going through the subcontractors with Joe Campbell from North Branch. So there's some decisions to be made at our next weekly meeting, which I believe we do on Tuesday mornings. So that'll be completed. The new elementary school, There was a site walk on a potential property on March 15th. We anticipate receiving the appraisal this week. And then I also wanted to note that Barker and Associates, they have completed the pre-bond phase work and at a total of $117,000. I'm here asking that for board authorization to request that reimbursement from the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust. So that can be reimbursed to the capital project fund. And then Kyle Barker and his team are going to present at the next facilities improvement meeting on April 13th. And the Campbell High School internal lighting project, they are in the process of ordering all the materials for that. It's still expected to be completed by the end of the school year. And with the selectmen approving $315,000 from the impact fees, we're going to be able to fully fund this project along with the seed grant monies that we got from the state. So this particular project will have no tax impact. Be fully funded. That money from the selectmen will also help us to fund the project that's going to take place at the high school to get that water pressure right. That'll happen over the summer. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to update on. It's just the question on whether or not I can request the funds from the trustees of trust funds.
Okay. You need a board vote on that.
Yep.
All right. I'll make a motion to authorize Corey to request $117,000 from the Capital Improvement Expendable Trust Fund to pay Kyle Barker and Associates for pre-bond phase work.
How much is in that fund?
Oh man, it's up around 900,000.
Okay, so this is the entire where all the federal money went to.
What's that?
Where all that federal money that we had a special election on? Is it that?
That was the
account?
state. What did they call that?
It was like the supplemental adequacy money.
Yeah,
something like that.
Okay.
That's where that went. Plus, we did just in March. They voted on another 125,000 to go in there, so we'll be up over 900,000.
Who seconded
Who seconded that?
It was Tara.
I did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just for everyone watching's benefit, will this be money that come March of next year we'll look to the voters to replace into an account?
Yeah, in conjunction with the town capital plan, because there's 125 on that plan each year.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes 500.
Thank you.
Question on the middle school. When are we anticipating work to begin?
Oh, we got to get the GMP in, and then he's got to start working with the subcontractors to figure out what the lead times are for all the materials that are going to be needed. Right now, what is he looking at? 43-week span of the project. I think that was the most recent document that I saw. So once they can start ordering, we'll have a better idea of when they're going to start. I think the last day of school for students is when they intend to be in there doing something, be it selective demo, be it, we can't open school in September without a kitchen. So I think we would look to definitely get the kitchen done over this first summer.
Kitchen piping work in the ceilings and that type of thing?
Yeah.
There's still, so there's the ideal phasing, which is the logical phasing. You say, here's how we would do it. Then there's the real phasing, which is what materials available to bring in. So that's the tricky point at this time. We were hoping to start in April. However, the supply chain issues make it not practical. So, and then you say, okay, so what could we do that we don't have a supply chain issue on? You could do the outside installation, except you don't want a backhoe outside a classroom, right? So we're trying to be smart about that too. So it's just presenting some extra hurdles that we didn't anticipate. But the good news is, again, with the MLP, we can order the materials now and they're on order. And so everything is plugging ahead for a June 15th-ish start date.
So your intention is to start near or at the end of the school year?
Yes.
And go throughout the summer and however long it takes to finish?
Correct.
Got it.
And there will be some disruption in the fall and early winter. So, but that is correct.
Okay.
Actually, Corey, I had a question off of your question. I was wondering, could you give us a list of the trusts that we have, like all the existing trusts and what the balances are?
I can do that.
Okay.
I can share that over to you
Would
right
like
now.
to know that.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Corey?
Just while we're on the business administrator, and this is piggybacking on budget committee report outright, one of the things that they were asking as well is the school expense reports. Was the vision that they were going to be linked to your BA report here, where I could just send it to the budget committee, or how are we going to make that work?
On my monthly, I do my
Yeah.
monthly reports on the second meeting. So on April 20th, it will have all those.
Okay.
All those
It'll just be a link.
Yeah. Yep. I can link the annual budget.
Thank you.
Anything else?
So you're going to forward them to the budget committee?
Once they're in the
or-
reports, or at least I have access to them
Okay.
somehow, it's just a matter of downloading and forwarding the PDF over to the budget committee.
And the procedure is the board gets it first. So after it's presented in a public format, then it can be forwarded.
Sure.
But it should not go to, until it's been received here, because it is a report to the board, right?
Yep.
Got it.
Great. Anything else for Corey? All right. We'll move on to committee reports. First up, we have budget committee.
So the budget committee did meet, what was it? March 24th? Yeah, thank you. And I mean, the key thing for the school board was the draft budget committee calendar that you had circulated, and just kind of taking a look at those dates, how they align. The budget committee is proposing a very similar structure to last year, in which there's a period where the budget committee and the school board do joint sessions and budget reviews, et cetera. I think with the timelines where holidays fall, it's a day or two earlier this year than it was last year in terms of handover of budget to the budget committee for review. So really just the budget committee is looking forward to support that calendar, or if there are changes, we need to bring that back to them.
I forwarded that to you and Corey. Great. Anything else, Andrew?
No, they're looking for a decision on that in May, so we can finalize it.
All right.
Can I piggyback off of that? Because I, as the deputy, I had a conversation with John's son,
Yeah.
okay, because I just wanted to get his perspective on, as chair, what do you want to, like,
What are
what's
your
your direction?
expectations? Yeah.
And so, one thing he mentioned to me was that the budget committee, I'm sure you can speak to it better than I can, probably, Andrew, but I'm just going to convey what he said to me. They would like, and I think maybe this falls to you, Corey. They would like, I guess, more regular reporting, which I think will help with the weekly if you're going to forward those weekly. What was the challenge last year? How come?
Over the summer,
Okay.
I kind of fell derelict in my duties in forwarding those reports over. I had a lot going on.
Just later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So that's one thing. And then through the budgeting process, he was saying that they would very much like to see the budget at different points in time. And I'm not sure what that looks like practically, but he was saying even just, if you get it in, maybe phase one is the template,
Yeah.
like of what each school has spent the last 3 years, whatever that template is, with zeros in the first column, so that the budget committee can start looking at that, like historical, and year to date. Do you know what I'm saying? So as I was thinking about that, I was thinking it would be really helpful if probably the budget committee would give to us in writing what they want. Because I was hearing, something from him. Maybe you have a different perspective, but there are many people on the budget committee. And if they could give us, what are your expectations? Then we as a school board, can decide along with Corey, who has to produce the stuff, like, okay, here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. This is like this formatting, you're asking for this, and we don't have that, and it will require this. Like, I just feel like setting those expectations up front will help the process and perhaps help the relationship.
I thought they wanted the budget days and days before we got the budget. That's the way I took it last year.
That is what I took it too.
Yeah.
But he was saying, even if it was in preliminary process, and I can understand not putting, like, not giving them certain preliminary, we'd have to,
it changes.
we'd have to qualify that. But at least if we could give them the initial template, like, here's what we're looking at for previous years, and here's where we are year to date, that's at least a starting point initially. I don't know. I just thought of that. So he didn't mention that particularly.
November and December, like the
Well,
process,
just-
that's like snapshots. That's what I think.
But
of
he's saying
snapshots.
for the budget process, but also for things like the elementary school project, and definitely the GMS project. So what are the natural breaks in point in time that we could help keep them informed? That's all. So
My conversations with the budget committee have been, they just want the expense reports, the 60 or 70 page year-to-date expense report on the budget.
that's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing. Just because, like, from the town side, it's like clockwork. Literally every Friday, 3:00,
Yeah.
we get an email. Okay? I mean, you can attest every Friday,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And I think the budget committee was really just looking for, and even my time last year was just that consistency. If it's once a month, great, right? If it's after the second meeting and we get it on the Friday or the following Monday, fine, just send it and life is good. Right, just so we have some way to monitor expenses over what was a voter approved budget was the ask.
Okay.
Frequency to be determined, ideally at least once a month. If that works for the SAU, great.
How often does the town do it?
Weekly, every Friday, 3:00, like clockwork.
They have a much smaller budget with
I
fewer
was thinking, yeah.
departments too, so it's a little bit easier.
Mm.
They also do they use Excel?
No, it's a
Because the report comes in Excel.
no. It comes in a PDF report that's scanned from their ledger system.
Right. Facilities improvement?
Corey pretty much covered that.
He did.
I would say the only thing I would add, and maybe you can add to it too, I thought there was a really good discussion at the end of the meeting regarding communication and just sort of strategizing what that's going to look like going forward in terms of outreach to town. And so I thought there was some good discussion. And I look forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Emergency management, Tara, you said you had a meeting?
Yes, I attended my first meeting for the emergency management department. I mean, obviously, I don't want to get into too much detail, but the meeting talked about kind of some of the physical requirements that we need and are addressing, like radios and the mass notification system, the blue light system. A streamlined way that drills will be reported, which I think is already proving to be very helpful. Those are, and that, I mean, I don't know if people realize, but we do a lot of drills in town, and it was for me attending for the first time. I didn't really realize how many drills we do, and they're not all just one type. It's a variety of different drills, and so
10 required per school year.
Yeah.
It's one per month.
Yeah.
One
So
per month that the
I-
building's occupied.
And there'll be a lot when the weather gets
I
nice.
know. So I felt reassured. I don't know. I was like, wow,
Feel
that's
safe.
really good. And there's definitely good feedback coming from each of the schools for the report from those drills that are being addressed. So,
Thanks. Grading reporting? That's
oh,
Louise.
no, that was you.
We're meeting next on the third Tuesday, right? So that'll
Okay.
be before the next meeting.
Right. Joint loss?
Oh, Corey just left. I think the big thing on joint loss was they haven't met in a while, and they are setting up walkthroughs with principals. And I asked to be on at least one walkthrough. I don't care which school, just to see what they look at. They go through and they see if there are things like you shouldn't have a room candle wax thing or heater under your desk. Like maybe there's a microwave leaning off the side of a table, stuff like that. The science department, which was a big problem when I first started, all the chemicals and everything, that was cleaned up years ago. So I guess that room is all cleaned out where the, what is that called? Greenhouse is. And let's see.
We have a greenhouse?
Yep, in the science department upstairs. We do. We do now. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Inside greenhouse, that's a thing?
It is.
Perk, I wasn't able to make the Perk meeting, but I got an update. There were 2 items on the agenda. One was updating the sociology text, and the other one was updating the business department competencies. And so those were both approved by Perk, and she'll be bringing those for board approval to our next meeting.
I'm sorry, you said the business department
Competencies.
competencies.
Yeah. School start time task. School start
Maybe
time
someday.
task force.
Just signed up for
Postponed
that one.
indefinitely. Wellness, Tara.
Actually,
Oh.
before we go, so can we talk
I'm gonna
about
go
that
on
Sure.
task force?
It's a
Um,
good one.
my
It's a good committee to be on. There's not a lot of responsibility.
Just
my sense is we should tap the brakes on it. I'm going to explain why. So first of all, we address school start time at LMS, right?
Yep.
So we've made some progress on it, and that was driven by a variety of factors. But I think we got to a good spot, and I actually think things are working pretty well. The buses came together the way we imagined they would, and so forth. So to me, the big question now is really the GMS, and then it's the elementary and the middle high school start times. But with so much effort on getting a building figured out, I'm not ready to engage in, and here's when it should start, and this is what the program should look like, because I think we're putting the cart before the horse now. So my suggestion is that's an important question, but we need to dedicate our time. We need one less spinning plate, dedicate our time to getting the building. And then we're going to have plenty of time to engage in the programmatic review and figuring out how everything comes together. So that's my gut as to why I haven't done a lot with it, because there's just not the capacity right now to take on one more start thing. And I feel like we're going to solve it in a building that it's not our intent to stay in. And it just feels like, is that the right time to be engaging in that? So but I'm open to feedback. And Heidi, you volunteered to be on. I think you volunteered as a parent.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
That was a long time ago.
But you were a parent at the
But
time.
I was,
and
yes, I
you
did,
inherited
yes.
this. So
I mean, I think part of it was the conversation of what are the schools around us doing, and how the research into whether the high school should start later and the elementary school should start earlier. But if we're not ready to have that conversation, it hasn't gotten off the ground for a reason. So, I mean, we've yet to even have a full committee yet. I understand. I think you were looking for.
we had it almost ready to go, and then the pandemic.
Right.
And then that was a victim of spinning plates, right?
Yep.
And I do think, when I think about where we've landed, which is a new school on a new site, but where's the site? How does that factor? So there's so many questions that I just get myself caught up on.
Right.
We could do preliminary, reviewing what other schools are doing. We could start some preliminary work, but I do worry about the capacity to take it on.
Yeah. I trust your judgment on it. I think it's an issue. I think the most pressing issue was addressed with the LMS time being adjusted last year. I think that's worked out actually quite. The feedback I've gotten anyway is that it's worked out for the better for families. The busing fell into place with that. So, I don't see an urgency with having that conversation unless there was some reason that, for example, sports teams were having to adjust because all of the high schools that they play, they're starting later or whatnot. But beyond that, I don't know that there's any type of urgency to it. So.
I don't know. Sometimes these teams at the high school have to leave at 1:30, so they'd be missing like 2.5 hours of school because they have to travel over mountains, through woods. Because we have a really weird Division III setup.
It's weird, but actually the pandemic helped us because we became more
It narrowed us.
regionalized.
Yeah.
So we wanted to cut down on the amount of time somebody was on the bus. And we wanted to play the same schools more frequently to share the same germ pool or whatever the argument was. So I think actually it's not as bad. We're not traveling, north of Notch as frequently.
As
unless you get
frequently,
into
that is
tournament
correct.
time.
Yeah.
Tournament time's a different game.
Yeah.
I guess I would say I would put it out there in terms of if anyone has anyone in the public has any feedback on the urgency of this and whether it needs to be discussed, to certainly get in touch with Dr. Jetty or myself or the chair. But short of somebody bringing up something I'm not thinking of, then I think we're okay to spin the other plates for a while.
Put a pin in it.
Okay. I think we'll leave it on the list though, so we don't lose track of it.
I know it's there.
Make an easy report.
Want to switch?
We combine it with
There's a good one.
we combine it with your other committees. Wellness.
We did have a meeting. Let's see, March 22nd, CHS. We did some policy work. We are looking to consolidate aspects of our current policy that are redundant, but also expand to include social and emotional wellness, as well as physical and nutrition or nutritional wellness. So we did policy work. We broke into three different groups and focused on each of those. So we're getting there. We've looked at some other policies as well. So that's been a big focus. We have a draft vision. We're still circulating through the schools. We would like to broaden our membership. So I'll put a plug out there again. We are having another meeting on Monday, April 11th at GMS in the library. We're changing up the location to make it convenient for everybody. So it's in the GMS library at 3:30 on Monday. So we are looking for any members of the community that would like to participate or welcome to. We want staff. Staff have been great about coming to this. It's also for students too. So it's about student and staff wellness. So we would like to invite students, and actually I think Lauren was going to be reaching out to the student council to try to get some students to attend as well. So it's kind of a banner meeting because this wellness committee has not met 3 times in a single year, at least since before I joined the board. So it's been at least 5 years. So, I mean, we really are just getting this off the ground. Prior to this year, I think the committee only met once, and it was right before the pandemic. So that's why we're starting with the policy initially and getting it going from there. So anybody's welcome to attend Monday, 3:30. I know it's a tough time. But if you want to be on the list to, get minutes or whatever, just reach out to Lauren Crowley or me, and we'll make sure you are. Thank you.
Andrew?
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
I will
It was
yield-
defer to Liz.
I
It
will
was me.
yield to Miss McDonald due to medical reasons. I was not able to
Because
attend.
I love this room so much. I want to be here every night of the week. I was on the town capital improvement plan this week, there were a lot of new members. They elected a chair and a co-chair. The chair is Michael Croto again, and the co-chair is Andrew.
What?
The biggest thing I took out of it, they were going to, they think the impact fees need to be restructured because we're definitely leaving money on the table with new developments. And I agree with that 100%. And I'm sure Andrew does too. They received half of their federal funding, which is tucked away in a bank. They plan on doing, this is a spreadsheet they sent out, and they're sending it back to all the departments, asking them to revisit for pricing. How am I doing, Corey? Good.
Very good.
They want to update all what was good in 2021 is not going to be the same price in 2023.
Right.
So that was interesting. And the other thing I wanted to ask, because I was looking at the school part, since I'm a school person, they have the GMS bleachers on there for 2023.
GMS.
Oh, CHS. Sorry. They don't have bleachers there. The CHS bleachers for 2023. And I remember listening to our new principal who wants to have meetings every week and I question the safety of the bleachers if they're going to be used weekly. That was just my question as a school board member. Is it that imperative?
They pass inspection. They've passed
Okay.
inspection every year.
Oh, all right. That's good to know.
It's the mechanism underneath the bleachers that pulls back and forth.
Mhm.
There's some work that needs to be done.
But it's not
underneath
going to
it.
collapse.
But no,
Oh.
I believe that, I think, and I mentioned this in the meeting the other night, I think with the two major projects we have going on, that we go back as a school district and look at that and reprioritize some of the other things that are on there. Because the two things we're working on right now are such high dollar items.
Right. And the infamous fire truck did come up. That was voted down by the public. That came up and they are still questioning, the selectmen are still questioning what to do about,
They're
Yeah.
not sure what is allowable and what isn't under the ARPA funding.
because they are
Very different structure than what
federal versus
yeah,
state.
the federal government just sent them the money.
$904,000.
And how much?
$904,000.
So they have half the money sitting in their bank account, but they're not sure exactly what they can do with it, and they don't want to spend it until they know for sure what they're doing is allowable. So they're working on that.
Yeah, and lost revenue seems to be the route they're taking.
Lost revenue was the route they took to receive the money.
Yeah.
So
So that's all I know. And I told Andrew I'd be more than happy to fill in if he needs me again.
Thank you.
Liz, just to be clear on those
Yeah.
bleachers, it's not a safety matter.
But I just,
They would be
every
shut
once
down
in a
if that
while,
was
we keep
yeah.
hearing it and
Yep.
to see it on here, I just have to ask.
It's an operation matter in terms of going in and
Thank
out
you for
correctly.
clarifying
It's- And stuff has been
Safety
bent, but
issue.
it's not a safety matter, to be clear.
Okay.
you look at anything within this. I mean, it's now a 21, 22-year-old
Mhm.
building, and eventually things do need to be replaced. There is no safety issue with the bleachers.
Yes.
That is, I just wanted to put that out there because I circled that.
The handholds going up and down are
Yeah.
really, really loose.
Yeah,
So
it's-
if we can tighten that down, that would be great.
Well, the company that comes in and does the inspections on it, they spend a lot of time, so basically the bars will just start to warp and bend
Yeah.
over. I
Yeah.
mean, it's 20 years of in and out
Oh,
of this thing,
absolutely.
right? So they're just making those adjustments, tightening that stuff up is doable. I'll give you another example. A baseball went through one of the plastic bleacher seats. It's never happened in 20 years. So then I say, 20-year-old plastic.
Yeah.
Right? So is it getting more brittle? Is it going to be less likely to absorb the shock of a ball?
Our
You know?
our facilities director does not believe it was a ball. After looking at it, so I'll catch up with that.
Alrighty then.
Hmm. All right.
Oh, okay, but still, it's
yeah.
Good question. Though.
Madam Chairman, just before we move into new business, I just want to recognize there's an email that came in to the school board
Oh, from the 24th?
about an email that should have been read under correspondence that
Yes.
wasn't.
I have it right
I have
here.
it written down
Okay, thank
to,
you.
to read it during, go over it during public.
Thank you.
yes.
I
Thank you.
responded to him as well.
Thank you.
All right, we are on policies. We have several policies to review tonight.
Yep. So the first one is IKF. That's the high school graduation policy. We did a first read on that at the last meeting, and we've highlighted in yellow the pieces that we've added in. Although, did the board vote on the first read? No, there was no vote taken.
Right.
So you asked me to look into suspensions that are appealable, right? That was one of the questions you asked.
Okay.
And the law does state that a suspension less than 10 days. So remember, the board has authorized me to then authorize the principals. So because you've given those authorizations, they are not appealable. You've given that to us. So anything less than 10 days is not appealable. And so this policy, and that is really in reference to the whole graduation participation piece. And who was the character?
Donna Martin from 90210. I'm telling you.
I just did not watch that show, but
Well, you missed out. I'm telling you.
but that does answer your question.
Thank you.
And
I
Donna's
appreciate
question,
it.
if she were to be
Yeah, she would have
suspended.
been suspended. She'd been out. No graduation.
I don't know.
It was
right.
90210.
So I'll make a motion to approve policy IKF as a first read.
My second.
Further discussion?
One comment, because it's a graduation policy,
Mhm.
what's our intent for the effective date of this? because what we don't want to do is do a second read and all of a sudden a kiddo, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear that what's your intent?
I think this
For
should
next
start
year?
July 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think next time we should put that in the motion to be effective on July 1. I don't know what you have to do on
To
our
be,
first
I wasn't
read.
done yet. To be effective July 1.
Okay.
There we go.
Did the second agree to that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. That's a good day.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Nope.
No.
4. No.
400. I can count. I'm a math tutor. All right. Next up is policy JFABD, education of homeless children and unaccompanied youth.
Okay, so in reviewing our policies, we felt that it was important to come back and just update these policies. So we had foster children and homeless and unaccompanied youth lumped together in one policy. The School Board Association recommends it be two policies. So what we're proposing to do is to rewrite the homeless children and unaccompanied youth policy under the new code JFABD, and then to use JFABE for the foster care policy. So now, instead of it all being in one spot, it's separated off. So let me go to the new one, which is the homeless piece. Bear with me a minute while I open it up. This is a pretty much a rewrite, just because by separating the two off, we had to come at it. And we also wanted to make sure that we were consistent with federal law changes that had occurred over time. And so this is to make sure that we are 100% in compliance with the McKinney-Vento Act. And there were pieces in the former policy that were not as clear as they should have been relative to appeals and so forth. So we want to bring this forward to you for revision and update as explained.
Okay. Any questions about policy JFABD?
I just have a question about, is the Director of Special Services also the homeless liaison point of contact and the foster care point of contact, as well as
So-
the truant officer and whatever else? Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, we have a lot of hats for the Student Services Director to wear.
Yeah.
But these are extra hats. You take McKinney-Vento, it requires specific training. What's the law say? How do you properly enact that? I mean, it's very specific, very detailed. And so why is it there? Because like special ed law is very detail oriented. And so somebody who understands that tends to then say, okay, and here's what I need to do in this bucket. So that's why it's lumped together.
Curious. Okay.
Is this one also for approval with an effective date of July, or is this because it's required and there's been this update that it should be now?
I would recommend that you do it effective immediately, because it's not going to change anybody's current status.
Okay.
So it's not going to impact any current student. But if we were to learn of a new case, we should be following the new policy
Okay.
in terms of following through on that.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve policy JFABD, education of homeless children and unaccompanied youth.
I'll second.
First reading.
For a first reading.
With the
I'll
second,
second.
Tara?
Tara.
Will
Any
that
further?
be re-reviewed or re?
One
It's
more
back for
time
a
at the
second
next
reading.
meeting.
Yeah.
One more time, okay.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Wasn't here for the duration of the conversation.
Neither was I.
Okay.
Passes 3.
So
There were
what's the
three.
vote?
3-0-2.
All right, next up is policy JFABE, education of children in foster care.
And again, that was combined under the old policy, and now it's its own distinct policy. And you are correct, that's one more hat. Sometimes it's a special ed intersection, but not always. But that is one more hat that we have.
Can a student be considered homeless and in foster care? The only reason I ask that is because there's something in this policy that mentions a shelter. And to me, a shelter is a homeless shelter, but maybe there are foster care shelters and I
Yeah.
just don't know.
Show me where the word shelter is, if you wouldn't mind. Let me make sure I'm following it.
I just have to do it. Control F.
Oh, here, I see.
Paragraph A, fourth line down. This includes children in foster family homes, comma, shelters, comma, relative foster homes, group homes, and residential facilities.
So I think the word shelter is a broader use here.
Broader than.
So it wouldn't be necessarily a homeless shelter, but if for some reason the child were placed, let's say there were no foster families available and the state had to place them somewhere, they would use a shelter scenario. And remember, this sort of applies, we want to think about this two different ways. A Litchfield youth who becomes foster and then could be placed somewhere else. So they might be in a shelter in Manchester, for example, or a youth from another town who becomes sheltered in Litchfield. So you have to think both sides of that.
May I ask why this is new?
So this was in the former policy with homeless. It was all lumped together under one policy. The recommendation from the association is to strip it out and have two separate policies because they really are. There's sometimes an intersection, but not always.
So a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy JFABE for a first read.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
All right. And then the next one is a new policy for Litchfield. And Michelle's going to have to help me a little bit with the history on this one because we should have a policy on how a parent objects to specific course material. So I don't want my child to read a particular book. There should be a way that a parent can express that objection. And then there should be a way that the district responds to meeting the student's educational needs in an alternative way. That's what this policy is intended to address. Ours was, we had it, but it was buried. And can you just talk to where it was?
Yeah, so what happened was, in policy IHAM, the board years ago, back when, 7 or 8 years ago, the board couldn't really come to we couldn't get that policy to be right for everybody. So instead of just making it for health education, opting out of health education, they lumped both of them together in one policy. But it doesn't fit because the old policy says opting out of curriculum units, whereas this is specific courses and material.
So I use the example of a book. I don't want my child to read whatever that piece of literature is. And then how do I object to that? How do I get the needs met some other way? But it was in this other piece relative to health ed. So it read more like I object to the teaching of a unit on drugs or alcohol or sex education or whatever the topic was. But that's not the only thing somebody can object to. So this is a broader look at it. And I think it gives parents a clearer guidance on what they are able to do.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve policy IGE for first reading.
A second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
So then the last one is IHAM because that had to be revised. Now that it's moved out. So this is a reapproval with the change language for that update.
All right, make a motion to approve policy IHAM on health education and exemption from instruction.
Second.
Further discussion? Oh, for a first reading. Further discussion? No? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Thank you for that.
And we are back on track. Okay. Coronavirus review and update.
So, I mean,
It's
good news. What are you saying?
I just wasted. I'm sorry. Yeah. It just never ends.
This is the March numbers. Do we have April numbers?
so, March ended last week. So this
Yeah.
just shows you the update as to where we were at that point in time. Honestly, I am going to pull up the April numbers, but so we've created the grid. You can see going into it. A couple of things to point out on the general is that Litchfield is now operating in the moderate category. The county had gone to moderate, but it's back to substantial as of last week. So it seems as if the magic number is greater than 100 over here. Because it went from 100.1 at moderate to 105. So I still can't find the definition of when it flips, but I'm zeroing in on it based on that. So at GMS for April, we do have one positive staff member right now, and there have been 33 since the school year started. And you can see the attendance rate. Dan, both of those 7s, by the way, should be medium. They are not lows. So Dan's being overly optimistic, yes. But, again, our attendance has been hovering in that 7% range. And there's just a lot of stomach bugs going around.
Allergies.
It's a gross time to be in a school right now.
It is. But
Sorry, elementary, I should say.
But I think the key thing is, that there are no positive students either. So we're not talking Omicron wave. Let's just be clear about that, right? So then if we click on LMS, their absences are there. I'll have to calculate their percentages. I'm not sure why it's not in. But they have no positive cases right now between students and staff as of today.
What do they consider quarantine non-positive students, that they're in contact with somebody who had COVID? Or is it they had a runny nose and they had to go home?
I think they're counting that, Liz. So
Yeah, because it's so off from the other two. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, because 17 compared to 2 or 0 or 3. I'm just
where'd you
curious.
see 17, Liz? I'm sorry.
On GMS, they have 17 non-positive students quarantining.
Are you?
It says 17 pending tests.
Column E.
So these must be kids that have symptoms like runny noses and coughs and whatever.
Are you adding those?
No, sorry,
Oh,
she's
I'm on
going back
March.
to 331.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
that was like
Yeah.
a few weeks. I just was
Okay.
curious why that number was so big.
Could be kids they've sent home with symptoms.
I think that's accurate. If somebody is out, and
Right.
we've had some families will, they'll do the double negative test, but then they don't want a mask. And so, that's under the guidelines. So it is resulting in some people being out, some students being out. And then Campbell hasn't filled it in. So we'll get that taken care of. We still meet with our weekly COVID calls on Thursday. So we'll get that updated.
Just the April isn't on the website yet. So can we post the
Oh.
April?
You didn't give it to me.
I did when I created it, but that's okay.
I didn't get it in my email. It says you've been shared, so I didn't.
I will.
I will take care of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries.
Ooh, this
I know some parents check it regularly just
yeah.
to kind
We'll
of
get
keep
it
a
up there.
pulse check on what's going on. So I think it's still useful.
And then the other thing that I wanted to just have a discussion on. So the preschool masking is a topic, and I shared it with the board as a concern. So basically, after the board voted, this goes all the way back to when you remove masks. And it was all the rationale that Dan and I heard was because the vaccine now is available to 5-year-old students. And, so we're okay doing this removal. So he said to me, what do I do about preschool? I said, well, what's the pulse out there? Because they're not available for vaccines yet. And he said they want to stay the course. I said, just stay the course. Just stay the course.
Who did he ask? The
Preschool.
the teachers or the parents?
I would say that he asked the teachers first. However, Liz, there were parents who weighed in. And when parents started to weigh in, excuse me, it went both directions with you absolutely have to keep the mask on. I've got a medically fragile kid. And you absolutely have to take the mask off. It's parent choice. So he got total mixed reviews.
Welcome to COVID.
Total mixed reviews. And he said, I need guidance from the board. And so that's why we're bringing it back, because as it's gone on, it's gotten like, what exactly should we be doing here? And I do think, I mean, they've talked about trials that are ready for as young as 2, but I don't know that they've put that out yet. So
Quick question. Are pre-K numbers included in the GMS stats that were just presented?
So I'm pondering that. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask that question to Dan specifically. I could text him.
I believe they are. And his newsletter, I think he breaks it down by pre-K is one of the categories.
Are you getting his newsletters? GMS?
I think my wife does.
Oh.
If it's in the newsletter, then it's in the
Yeah,
spreadsheet, because he would be consistent with whichever
Right.
direction.
So I think, you know, I definitely understand both sides of the argument. And I think that, again, it's.
I don't think I have actually. I'm going to say just an LMS, but not GMS. Yeah.
So I think where I kind of come down with preschool is, well, I guess it's not. I was going to say it's voluntary. So that age group for children are not required to go to preschool. They are required to go to first grade forward by state law, but they are not required for kindergarten, correct? And they are not
No,
younger.
They have to go to kindergarten. They just don't have to go to full day kindergarten. Kindergarten is required now.
It is?
It is?
Yeah. Isn't it? I thought that was
I
decided.
thought it wasn't. I think it's still.
Really?
Yeah.
I
I think
thought it was
what they've done is
personnel.
they've incentivized it
Yes,
by
it's
adding
still-
reimbursements and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't believe it's I think compulsory ed is ages 6 up.
Well, regardless, I mean, kindergarten's not the argument, but so preschool is voluntary. However, there are interventions and there are students who are required, or not required, but if they want that educational assistance to be there. So, I'm going to say it out loud, but it doesn't sound right in my head even as I'm saying it. But I'm saying, is this a situation where they're separated by mask and no masks? The parents that don't want masks, the populations are separate, or is that? Can we even open that door? Because I feel like the reasons for each are incredibly important.
Yeah.
Seeing their faces, kids being able to communicate, all of that. I completely understand that. But I also understand we've got these kiddos over here that have very serious medical issues, and they can't be vaccinated, and masks are their only way of protection. And while they can continue to wear them, those kids are grabbing all over each other, and you might as well just assume that anything that goes through one kid's going to go through the whole class.
My challenge with that argument is that schools are the only place. Well, right now, what other place is requiring these kids to wear masks?
Medical
You know?
facilities. So I took Soph to the eye doctor today.
Every other
and
place, like
dentist is still, but eye doctor Soph was mad. She had to put a mask on. I haven't worn this in 2 months, Mom. But she had to wear a mask. And so is this like a medical
be providing a medical service.
correct?
Yeah.
I mean, is there some argument for that? I don't know. I mean,
So we also, in talking it through, we looked at like the public, you can't require them in public schools, but we're like, this is a voluntary program. It's not really covered under. So there's so much gray on this one
it's very gray.
that we were like, just maintain status quo.
So
But
what are the risks if we just keep it consistent with the board decision of having it being parent choice?
There are, I mean,
those who can wear masks still can wear masks,
Right.
If
Right.
they want to.
Right.
The risks. So I think for the parent who is seeking early intervention services for their student to receive physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy that they're getting through the school, because once they hit age 3, it has to be provided through the school. It's no longer, having had one in your house. And so those kiddos are having to go to school for those services. And if they're around other students in the environment that I expect preschool acts, that they could get sick.
Yeah, well, I'm asking that question because we all know masks fall. Kids in this age, they have running noses. They're all inside there. So, what protections are they really serving? Yeah,
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean that was a common problem with my K student, right? I mean, even sure, yes, she's she's got her shot now, but her mask's falling down all the time.
Sure.
Where's your mask? I don't know.
I see why it's a dilemma. It's a tough one.
It's us to decide.
Well, is it just up to masks? Are there other measures we can do?
Well, that's why I was saying, is there a
Reorganizing
separate
classrooms,
reorganizing the
yeah.
classroom so
Or-
that one class is
Interesting
masked and one's not?
Just make sure they're not, I don't know, sharing
They do circle
materials, or
time
they
and they
spread out.
sing
Social
and-
distancing is still a big factor. I mean, are there other measures that the teachers can take to?
I mean, are these kids
It is
going and
getting
having the same
nicer
lunch
out.
that the
They
rest of
can
the
go
kids have? Are
outside
they
more.
going to the
They don't
same?
have lunch.
But are they going to the gym? Are they interacting playground? Any other areas where
They're
No.
pretty much in that
They're contained
classroom.
there,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
really not interacting in this.
Except for services when they're I think, do they still do PT and OT inside? There's
That
a
would be right.
room.
They were going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend that we offer to provide kid size N95s and, whatever we can possibly give those kids that need that extra mask, that the extra protection and continue to do whatever we can to social distance as much as we can. But
Can
Take 'em
parents
outside in
elect
nice
to
weather.
receive services on an appointment basis? Meaning, so if rather than having their child attend a 3-hour program at Tuesday, Thursday from 9 to 12 or whatever the times are, can they elect to make an appointment for speech therapy or PT or OT?
Saying they're not wearing masks. They don't have to wear masks. The speech therapists and the OT people.
But
It's-
that was my point earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
are they interacting with others?
Do you know what I'm saying? They have a choice to wear a mask or not. So they're
Are they wearing them?
I don't know.
Are there student
No, that doesn't make
are
sense
there
if they're
child
not wearing-
N95 masks? I just don't know that I've
Yes.
seen one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
So that's
seen
the
them.
thing. Okay.
They're suffocating.
I mean, I guess what ultimately where I kind of land is I don't know that we can do the grade any different than we've done the other grades.
My view is it has to be parent choice.
We have allowed all of the other kids, and it wasn't just vaccine. I mean, vaccine was a huge part of it, but
the numbers came way down. I mean, that's why we postponed going, making it parent choice for
conversation.
everybody until numbers were down to a manageable.
But I would like confirmation tomorrow, whenever, if pre-K is included in the GMS number.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
We can look it up in the email.
Okay, so do you need a vote?
So
can we hold off on? I know we've already held off on it, but I guess parents have weighed in already, and it was just a mixed bag. So any feedback we get is going to be mixed.
I think that'll be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same as the board when you voted that Wednesday
Yeah.
to take away masks, and then you got flooded with what? You just take away masks, So you were reacting to one set of parents, and then you got another set. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same thing whenever you
Yeah.
make the decision. But if the decision is, if the overarching rule is parent choice, we can work with the families who are concerned about that. We can look at are there other ways to segregate, so wrong term, but, provide an opportunity for students to be, separated in the classroom. We can do that.
Yeah, great.
Pre-K.
I
You know,
believe
if
it's
there's-
parent choice too.
I agree.
If we can get a better mask, we'll buy a better mask.
Yeah.
So
Okay. That's a consensus. Do you want a vote?
I don't think so. I think unless you want to vote, but I feel like you've given us direction, and I'll talk to Dan tomorrow, and we'll go from there.
I think to cover us, it might be safe to do a vote, but I'll make a motion to.
You can do it too.
Everyone's looking to make pre-K or to, how do I word this? To have pre-K students wear masks as parent choice.
Can I reword it?
Sure.
I think I just want to say to have pre-K be in line with the mask policy for the other grades.
Perfect.
I think it would be more which is parent choice, but I just think pre-K should match. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. Is that a motion and a second?
Well, I'll be formal about it. So I make a motion to allow. Here we go.
See?
Yeah,
Same problem.
You're right. To authorize
Extend the masking policy to include pre-K as well.
I like that. To extend the.
Do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right.
Yeah, because I'm like, are we authorizing? No, we're not. What are we
Kind of
doing?
extending- Okay. So, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I hope Michelle got that one.
Yeah, sorry, Michelle.
I get everything.
It's choppy, but it's.
All right. Brings us to the manifest.
You hit me.
It has 3 signatures.
It's on
but-
camera.
It has 3 signatures.
Great. And
Questions?
no questions? All right. Public input. I'll open public input as soon as Liz has a chance to read the correspondence that we skipped over. At the
That
beginning
I
of the
skipped
meeting.
over, and I'm sorry because it was on the back. My printer prints on both sides. This was on March 24th from Jim Norton to all of us at the school board. He's writing to thank Michelle Flynn for all you've done for our town. He wants you to know the school board member comments made by school board member Cutter were unprofessional and out of line. He should be your priorities of a school board member is to be an example. The actions did not show actions of Mr. Cutter show he doesn't have the discipline to take his position seriously. I hope Mrs. Flynn knows how respected she is in our community. We are lucky to have her. And I hope Mr. Cutter learns from his mistakes. That's it.
Thank you for reading that.
I'm glad I found it. Sorry.
It's all right. Any other public input?
Can I let me just do a double check?
Oh, yeah. We'll check the
Yep. There's nobody there.
Ryan might be on it.
mic show.
Thank you, Patrick Keefe, LEA President. Glad I can be here to speak just briefly. First of all, I want to thank the board, everyone on the board, for desiring to reach out to the associations and have more direct communication. From my heart, I appreciate that. That's all we want to accomplish. I think that members of the LEA, I won't, Kathy and Darlene are here, or Darlene's still here, so I won't speak for the LSSA, but I'll speak for the LEA and say that's just really what members feel like our voice hasn't been heard. And then I just want to touch upon the climate and culture because we met with Bill Preble last week, as Mike said before. And one of the suggestions, because Dr. Jetty had mentioned that we're going to retreat, the LEA and the LSSA weren't originally invited. And then Bill Preble suggested to Dr. Jetty, I think you should invite them in at the beginning of this process. And Mike did agree. We didn't get an invitation. I emailed you this morning, say we still haven't received that invitation, and I needed to find out when I would be there. But
I was in Unity.
yeah, I found out at the beginning. Yes, you weren't here.
But to be clear, you were involved in the preliminary conversation, and we were inviting. So both associations were planning to attend the now canceled event. So
Yes,
they
but-
were going to be there tomorrow.
Yes, but that was from Bill Preble's suggestion to you. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess I just, I just want to my only concern is on this. I think Bill Preble certainly has great credentials. Dr. Jetty mentioned he's working all over the country with schools. I think my concern and people I've talked to in the LEA is that so there's a wall right now between, and I'm going to speak, Darlene and Kathy, out of respect for LSSA, I don't want to speak for you guys. So I'll speak for just LEA employees. We feel like there's a wall between us and the superintendent, and our voices aren't being heard. I guess, our fear is that this could possibly be another apparatus that rather than really tear down this wall and have direct, authentic between us and the district, and by that I mean the superintendent, SAU, and the school board. It's just this giant apparatus that will look like collaboration and input by the staff is being had, when in fact it is working. And I'm not saying intentionally or unintentionally. It's just, in fact, it's working in an opposite. It's actually just building more walls. So I shared with you guys survey from the LEA about a year ago, where we felt like there was only 7% of LEA members that thought that there was direct communication. We don't feel like this is, I just asked you, I'm not saying that this will work out or not, but just to keep that in mind. The school reopening committee in 2020, the fall of 2020, there was this huge committee, the reopening task force, where there were subcommittees, and everyone came out of those subcommittees and said, like, you know what, Pat, everything we talked about was not embedded in the district reopening plan. So again, there was this giant apparatus, but in reality, rather than open up the doors of communication, it really shut them. But it gave this presentation to the community that, look, there's communication taking place. And I'm not saying it's intentional or unintentional, just that's how we feel. Recently, the principal search committee at the high school, not one LEA member was on that. There was one. So there was, I think, 6 members, 5 were district and administration, and 1 was the LEA, and we didn't even get to choose. It was chosen by the superintendent. So we just feel like we want that direct communication, because we're really talented teachers, and we've lost so many at the high school, and we're losing so many at the middle school. That's our talents, and if we're going to have true retention, it's got to start at communication. And I really appreciate all of you guys, including our superintendent, for sort of trying to open up that door and having that direct communication, because it's going to benefit the students, and that's what we're all here for. And it's going to benefit the whole community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. With that, I gotta get clicked back on my agenda. We will, I'll take a motion to go into non-public. According to RSA 91-A:311 A through C, we'll be discussing the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against him, unless the employee affected 1 has a right to a meeting, and 2 requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Liz? Tara?
Yes.
Heidi? Yes. Andrew?
Aye.
And yes, so we will go into non-public. I'm gonna go see if I can